Good morning, everybody. So, I realize now that the musical choice I made is Christmas themed. I realize that now. It does look like candy canes. I didn't realize that before I selected it, but it does look like candy canes, and now yeah, I hear it. I hear it now. I can hear it. Yep. Groovy sax, gotta love it. Merry early Christmas. It's funny, Lockie has been like thoroughly obsessed with the song Jingle Bells the last 2 days. I don't know why. He just wants Jingle Bells playing all the time. I'm like, he's got the Christmas spirit, babe. Just is what it is, Tubes. I'm not gonna crush that. Oh yeah, my son has the Christmas spirit. Stop. Yeah, he knows what's up. I'm already ready for winter. It's like we deal with a really rough winter, and then the time comes that it's summer, and I'm like, oh yay, finally summer. I can go to the pool, I can do stuff like that. And then we go to the pool once, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. Okay, bring the snow back, please. More for me though, and let me know if you're the same way so that I can tell my wife I'm not crazy. I am more of the mind that I prefer the shorter days. I like it when it's dark at like 5:30 p.m. and when it's still dark at like 8 a.m. I love that. That's my jam. I much prefer that. This whole thing we have going on like in June and July where it's bright at 5 in the morning and it doesn't get dark until 10 p.m. I hate that. I hate it. Like the new lighting though. Thank you. I just kind of tweaked stuff around. Because I don't know, every time I turn these on, I'm always like, oh, it's too dark, like it's too bright. But if I go darker with these, you see the flicker? You see that? I don't see the flicker, but the cameras see the flicker. Darkness. We usually do blue. I don't know why it does that, but Deontay, good to see you. Luke, I'm back. What'd I miss? Life, man. A whole lot. The yellow and gold was really good. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. It's just very bright. Yeah. But it goes with our color scheme a bit better, for sure. I just wish I could make it darker. I don't know. What lights do I have? Those look really good. They're actually rated for like outdoors. They're these little things. I have a spare one just sitting here. It's this thing. You can get them on Amazon, but they just sit there. And they're rated to go outdoors. You can use them for like decorating the sides of your house or uplighting and stuff. So they work nicely. And for me, they're nice because they stay on when you turn off the whole collection. Because pretty much all of my stuff in this studio is hooked up to smart plugs. So I can just say blah, 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 turn the studio on. And then the cameras, the lights, everything turn on, which is really handy. I used to have to do it by hand and like spend 2 minutes going around trying to reach behind the cabinets and like turn the lights on, then turn these on, and then reach over, turn the cameras on. And then I realized I could just do it with like a single automated thing, which is awesome. Yeah, most of the stuff in this room is totally overpowered and unnecessary. But the nice thing is I don't ever really have to upgrade anything because it's all rated for like hardcore stuff. All of the lights, which are just barely out of view. It's like right here, my hand is touching the softbox. Right here, the tip of my middle finger. So it's just barely out of view. And then like above me, I have studio lights hanging from the ceiling that you just barely can't see. But that's how we achieve this look. And then you see like XQC and he's just like sitting in pitch black with like a phone flashlight. And then he makes more in a month than I make in 50 years or something. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Setup is like the Church of Truth from the Guardians game. Yes. I also have a sword, so we got that too. Sure do have a sword. How are you guys doing? How's your weekend? By the way, Jacob, I saw you were in here. Nikki had a doctor's appointment, an eye doctor appointment thing this morning that she had to run off to. So I didn't have time to get like metadata and thumbnails and stuff set for the video. So we're just going to post the video tomorrow. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. I also learned that Armored Core fans really don't like it when you say that you're not interested in the game that they're excited for. They really don't like it. It's just really funny. We posted like a stream clip of it, and the whole, like, you guys were here for the stream. The whole thing, I was just like, yeah, I have nothing like against the game. I'm just personally not into mech games. They just aren't my thing. But I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna try it, and hopefully it's awesome. And it wins me over, just like Ghost of Tsushima did. Ghost of Tsushima, I didn't connect with at first either. And then it became one of my favorite games of the generation. So I hope that Armored Core 6 does the same thing. But you would have thought that I got on video and like executed a ferret. Like it was crazy, the response. It was wild. It was like, guys, what are we doing? Like, I don't think, maybe they do realize, but this type of like response to content makes it so creators just don't want to cover the games that you want covered. Like, people ask me all the time, they're like, oh, well, why don't you do more videos on X, Y, or Z franchise? And I'm like, honestly, sometimes it's just because the community is so insane. Sorry, a small subset of the community that's incredibly vocal is insane and makes it such a headache to deal with. It's like, I don't even know if I want to bother. By the way, what do you guys think of X now? This is a thing. It's not going to be Twitter anymore. It's going to be X. Are they going to change the website domain? Is it going to be like x.com or something? I don't know. X is here. I don't. Yeah, ex-employee. You know what? It's whatever. I was never that about the Twitter tweet bird thing, but especially because now it doesn't really make sense. Like back when it launched with 140 characters, yeah, it's like a little tweet. It's a very little, boop, little bit of information. But nowadays with like long tweets and people doing threads of tweets, it's just like, it doesn't really make sense anymore. Had the same experience with Ghost of Tsushima. Yeah, it's okay for some games not to hook you immediately. But there's very different responses from some communities. For example, one of the best communities that I've ever seen was like the Star Citizen community, for example. If you start Star Citizen and you're like, I'm not sold on it, they will like come out of the woodwork to help you learn. They'll show you their ships. They'll take you on missions. Like, it's crazy. They're like, let me show you why I love this thing. With From Software people, it's like ungodly. Like they go for the jugular. And I think it's probably just like a bunch of neckbeards, a bunch of white Bowser types that are sitting in their actual mom's basement that are just, this is their personality. So they need to work it out. And like, I don't really care. Like it's all engagement. Your comments are all engagement. So like, it doesn't really matter, but it's just like, gee, Jesus Christ. Like everybody take a chill pill. My God. Oh man. Did I see the last Drop Frames podcast? Thank you, first of all, Eric, for the super chat. And secondly, I have it saved on my phone because I was gonna mow the lawn today and I was gonna listen to it during that. So not yet, but very soon. Hey, look, what's X? It's what Elon's changing Twitter to. He's getting rid of Twitter, tweeting, all of that. I guess it's going to be Xing now instead of tweeting. We'll see. I don't know how that'll go. Rabid fan bases can be brutal over the smallest things. Well, and it's just like this. All of this is not that serious. Like we're talking about video games, okay? Like it's pretty chill. It's pretty chill. And so if we're not going to have a good time discussing these things, like I'm good. I don't need to talk about it. like if people are so crazy, like for example, Sonic, you guys remember the video game donkey thing with Sonic? And the crazy response he got for that. That's the kind of headache that content creators are just like, I can make another video that performs the same level and I don't have to deal with that. Okay, I'll just do that. Like, why wouldn't you? It's the same, like with Nintendo. I can put out a Nintendo video on one of their games, but then it's going to be a headache trying to get the rights to the video fully opened up and the full monetization and all this. And so I'm like, I'm just good. I just don't need to bother with that. I'll just do my own thing. I'll do something else. Sorry, the AC is kicking in. It's trying to help me. It's like, oh, master, it seems hot. I forget which light it is. Sorry, the Titanic light is a little overblown. Let's adjust it. Real time. Nope, that's the hair light. Wrong light. Hold on. We have like a whole app to control the lights. Let's take this down a little bit. Apparently that's not the light. Okay, different light. PC light maybe? I have all them mislabeled. There we go. That's much mo better. Yeah, no light. A little bit of fill light. No light. little bit of filling. See, it's all just a very finely tuned beast, this studio, I tell you. Anyway, you probably get asked this a lot, but do you have an all-time favorite game? Honestly, it's probably the one that immediately jumps out to me is The Witcher 3. It's the one that really ignited my love for modern gaming. It's the one that I usually look to as a standard for a lot of other games. And if I think about it a little bit more, I can add in other games like Red Dead 2, I think is an absolute triumph in many ways. And like there's other games like Breath of the Wild that I just was totally absorbed with. But I think The Witcher 3 is one that really hooked me. And when people are like, well, why not look at games from like the 2000s? And I've said this before, honestly, I grew up in like a pretty sheltered house. We did not play video games until I was basically in high school. I was like playing competitive chess. Yeah, competitive chess. So I didn't play Skyrim until a good chunk after it released. I didn't play New Vegas until years after it launched. I didn't play any of these games, Fallout 3, until like 4 or 5 years after it launched. So when people are like, why don't you name those games as your go-to? And I'm like, this gaming thing for me is actually relatively new and exciting because I didn't, like a lot of people, I didn't grow up with it in the same way. Which some people I think find hard to believe because they're like, but you're like a hardcore gamer. You didn't like totally grow up in it. I was like, I wanted to, but my family just didn't do that. So it was kind of a later discovery. Did I see the Oppenheimer movie? Not yet. Not yet. I need to do that. Oh, Proto, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm scattered. And I guess the sound didn't go off. That's weird. Thank you, Proto. Geez, 6 months. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. The disagreement I have with your take is it's based on graphics. From stuff don't do graphics. You could say it's not your cup of tea, and that's okay. Yeah, I think it was, and I agree. When I looked back at the clip, it sounded like I was saying this doesn't look good because of the graphics, and that's not what I meant. What I meant was like it isn't really my cup of tea. And then also in terms of like the gameplay and the level design, the world design coming from Elden Ring, I felt like it was a big step back. Maybe it's not, and we just have seen limited scope stuff, or maybe I'm delusional, which is certainly possible. But to me, it just didn't look as grandiose or epic as what they pulled off just with Elden Ring, their last release. So to me, it looks fine, but it hasn't hooked me. And especially the lighting on the mechs is what really makes me feel like that game looks outdated graphically. But like I even said this in the clip, I was like, but this doesn't really matter because some games can be phenomenal without high-end graphics. It doesn't really. Graphics do not a great game make. But when I look at it and I feel like there's a lot of things kind of stacking up that make me kind of go, eh. It's just one more thing, you know. But like I said, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna try it. Twist my arm, why don't you? Let's be honest, Elden Ring graphics are also outdated. It's the art direction that carried it. I agree. I mean, the fact that in the modern day, a game, an action RPG like that can't support over 60 frames is amazing to me. How that didn't get a bigger response is baffling. Some people said, well, it's to create a level playing field across hardware, as if there's some sort of grand scheme from Hidetaka Miyazaki. Oh no, there's a bug. To like, okay, we're not going to update or recode our engine to support higher than 60 frames because we want all players to be on the same level footing. Like, come on. That's not what it is. They just haven't done it. Like you can make up excuses, but they just haven't done it. And it's because they don't need to. We saw how well Elden Ring sold. Why? Like if we were in a position where I'm like, okay, let's do this thing. I want you to paint a picture. And then I'm going to sell it for $100. You're like, okay, easy enough. And then I say, and I also need you to make the paper. I need you to like go get wood shavings. I need you to like whittle it down, press it. I need you to do all that so that the paper itself you're painting the picture on is your own. It's going to be a lot of extra work, but there are some people who are going to really appreciate that you made the entire thing from start to finish. And then you're going to go, okay, well, how much more am I going to get for that? I'm like, no, it'll still be $100. You're still going to make a ton of money for this, but some people will appreciate it a lot more. You're gonna be like, I'm good. I'm just gonna paint the picture on a regular piece of printer paper and it's gonna be fine. And I'm gonna make my $100 and we'll be good. And that's what it is. Like, FromSoft doesn't need to spend all this money for an engine revamp when their games are selling phenomenally well and the people complaining about it are a very vocal minority. So they just don't need to bother with it, you know? Makes sense. Whereas like the video that'll go up tomorrow on Starfield and the Creation Engine 2, it's what baffles me that people are like so just gung-ho, oh, well, it's a brand new engine, so technical issues won't be a concern anymore. It's like, no. The number one complaint, number one, across anybody who surveyed this or polled it, and certainly within Bethesda's metrics, the number one complaint was the Creation Engine. So when they asked players, what would you like to see changed for a future release, across the board, a new engine. So what do? They announce a Creation Engine 2. Sure, it looks just like the Creation Engine. Sure, it's just the Creation Engine with some added stuff reworked. 16 times the detail. Do I still have that soundbite?
16 times the detail.
It still is just an iterative improvement, but we're going to put a 2 next to it so that people think that it's brand new. Like, I don't understand how people don't understand that this is just like marketing crap. It boggles my mind. Like, people cannot be this dull. I don't understand it. It's like when Samsung calls their new TV HDR 10 Plus Ultra. And it's like, it's the same as last year's, but now it has Ultra in front of it. It can achieve 10% higher peak brightness. Okay, that's good. But that's not a new thing. Like, that's not a brand new lighting engine. It's not a brand new thing. You just made an iterative improvement and then slapped a brand new name on it, you know? Same thing with like a new iPhone. iPhone 15. It's going to be an iPhone. It's not like a brand new product from Apple. It's going to be an iPhone. If new engine have less bugs, I say it's a great improvement. Well, for one, it's not a given that new engines have less bugs. Unreal Engine, we've seen that plenty of times where they still have problems. So first of all, that's not a given. Second of all, it's still the Creation Engine, just with a couple of things swapped out. It's like a home renovation. It's got a new kitchen. It's still the same freaking house. This is not that complicated. Like, it boggles my mind. Man. Yeah, and also, can we stop this with dictating what game engines devs should use? Well, as we've said before, the Creation Engine is a very powerful tool for very particular types of games, which is why Bethesda still uses it. It allows their devs to build really big areas very quickly. It does all of their background simulation stuff. There's a reason that they want to keep using it and not move to something else. There's very good reason for it. Plus modding. I mean, if they were to move over to like Unreal Engine, modding all of a sudden is not going to be a big thing in Bethesda games. So that's a huge factor. So yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying like the calls for a brand new engine were based in any realistic expectation, but the point is people were very frustrated. How much does it take for an engine to be considered a completely new one? Well, if it's a new engine, people are just saying something different than Creation Engine. People aren't asking them, I don't think, to code one from the ground up. People are asking for them to shift to something like Unreal because it won't be Creation Engine, which has so many problems consistently. But I think it's like they're both sides of the same coin. They're both going to run into different issues. Like, the Creation Engine does all of this stuff really well, and then it also tends to have a lot of bugs. It has performance issues, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine consistently has trouble with, like, as we've seen a lot in the last year, shader compilation stuff all the time. Unreal Engine 5 probably improves that, but it also runs into problems when you get into really big scope projects. It takes a team that's recoding huge chunks of it to make it work properly. It's not as simple as like, oh, just go into Unreal Engine and everything will be better. It's not that simple. But like Unreal Engine 4 versus 5, well, Unreal Engine is still Unreal Engine when it's Unreal Engine 5. It's just iterative improvements. Like, And that's the thing is I'm like, nobody I don't think would claim that Unreal Engine games are going to be totally, totally different and shed all of the problems and concerns from 4 moving to 5, just like they didn't lose all the problems when they moved from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4. It's still the same engine. It's got tweaks and improvements and stuff's been dropped and added. It's an iterative improvement. Supposedly Miyazaki has been having his team learn Unreal. I forgot what popular game helped them, or what popular game they helped out on as part of learning that engine. That would be interesting. I mean, my understanding from a GDC talk I heard, I forget what the topic was, but it was like an offhanded comment where the guy was mentioning that the Unreal Engine has not been used a ton for really intensive action games, specifically like hitbox based action games, because it struggles with very fine hitboxes. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a game dev, but that would be interesting if that's something that's been improved on in Unreal Engine 5.2 or whatever they're on. And that could explain why they are taking their time, but it's also incredibly, incredibly difficult to just take a whole team of like 200-300 developers and be like, so you know this tool you've been using, we're swapping. Like if you are a Windows user, just imagine if you came into work one day and your boss is like, okay, everybody, we're using Mac now. Full stop. You'd be like, okay. Do you think Bethesda uses mods as a crutch for how buggy their games are? They don't even bother fixing problems for consoles, which is harder to mod. I think it's hard to deny that. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. The fact that like Fallout 3, I think recently, like 6 months ago, it got a patch. But for like 3-4 years, Fallout 3 was basically unplayable on Steam unless you went in and manually edited INI files and cleared the requirements for Windows Live and all this stuff, which the devs could very easily do. But they just figured, it's not worth the afternoon it would take to do that when people can just Google it and do it themselves. And that's just a very different mentality, I think, than what they should have, which is these customers have paid us a lot of money. We should take care of them. But that's just me. That's just me. What do I think will be a bigger hit, Starfield or Spider-Man 2? I guess it depends on how you define hit. Like in terms of revenue, I would guess probably raw revenue, probably Spider-Man, because people are going to pay $70 a pop for that. Whereas Starfield, a lot of people will just be playing through Game Pass. So there's that. But then again, the big thing that I don't think people have really processed yet, Starfield, we talked about this on the podcast. Starfield is offering early access. Where is it? Trying to find the damn article. Yeah. Premium edition upgrade. Up to 5 days early access. Requires Game Pass subscription or digital version of the base game. So you can upgrade to this. I think somebody said in chat it was like $36 or $38 or something like that. But if you have Game Pass, you can pay that upgrade fee and then you get the premium edition and you get 5 day early access. And let's be honest, a lot of people are going to do that. A lot of people are going to do that. People love to play games early, even though it's actually just the real launch. And then the official launch is just the late launch, but whatever. So this is going to be a big deal. I mean, a lot of people are going to have Game Pass, and then they're also going to pay $38 for the upgrade. I believe there's limited modding support on Game Pass. Yeah, I wouldn't really know. I would guess people that are hardcore modders are probably going through Steam. I would agree. Because the way Microsoft like arranges the game files that they have is kind of weird. At least as far as I can tell. I tried to like back up some saves I had like physically back them up, and it was a nightmare trying to find where stuff was kept. Oh, this is interesting. Somebody went in and data mined some of Bloodborne, and they found that in Bloodborne, the enemy bullets have realistically sized hitboxes, but the player bullets have giant BS hitboxes, which is the opposite of what I expected, not gonna lie. So enemies coming in, you have to be, I mean, you can just barely dodge it because it's right at the size of the actual bullet, whereas player bullets have a lot of wiggle room. You can see here the realistically sized bullet hitbox for the enemy. Yeah, I've always thought that Bloodborne was really funny because the accuracy of the bullet hitboxes always felt really tight, but I guess that's specifically when you're trying to dodge them by running. Interesting. It also triggers me how the bullets are modeled. They look like butt plugs. Oh, man. Yeah, Jor, or if you're free to start earlier, we can start earlier. I'm good with whatever. I'm good with whatever. Pretty I. Thank you for 2 months. Hey, Luke, did you see there are rumors of Insomniac supposedly working on a third unknown title? That wouldn't surprise me at all if they were doing that. They've got the Spider-Man team, and then does anybody know what the team that was working on Ratchet and Clank is doing? Oh, probably Wolverine. Is that what they moved to? I mean, they've got to be getting bigger because they just keep dropping hit after hit after hit, you know? Like they can't miss. They cannot miss. It's kind of crazy. Real quick, let's look at this. So this is brand new from Ubisoft. Behind the scenes look at crafting a galaxy of opportunity. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lordy. Let's see what this is before we get Mr. Jor in here.
Working on a Star Wars game is a dream come true.
I've had all of the toys, and it's wild to go from making these little stories on the carpet to actually build a narrative in the Star Wars galaxy.
Massive entertainment.
It has to be like an actual a surreal moment when you realize, oh, we're crafting our own Star Wars franchise or own Star Wars story. Like, I can only imagine such a huge IP, and then they're just like, yeah, go for it. Make something great. Actual dream come true. Makes sense.
Is the perfect choice to build an open world Star Wars game because it is inherent to their DNA as a studio to deliver on incredible open world experiences.
Massive Entertainment are master storytellers for open world games. This is going to be a fresh experience for Star Wars fans everywhere.
Immediately, I had that in my head, all the possibilities of where do we want to go, what can we bring to Star Wars that has not been seen before.
It's interesting that he defines Massive as the perfect studio for this, because I think for most people, they look at Massive and they're like, okay, so you did The Division. That's awesome. But The Division and what we know about Star Wars Outlaws are very different. Star Wars Outlaws is like a single player, as far as we know, narrative open world adventure game. And with The Division, you're talking about like an online sort of faux MMO shooter, like pretty different games. And to be clear, like The Division, most people swear by it who play it a lot, love it dearly. My best friend from high school that still hang out with all the time, Caleb, he has like over 1,000 hours, I think, in The Division 1, and then The Division 2's played a ton of it. So I'm sure they're very, very capable. And they also have been assigned Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. But it's just surprising that like out of seemingly nowhere, they go from The Division to being tasked with 2 huge IP. And it's just surprising me because you'd think that they'd hand it to somebody, some other team. But then again, I mean, Ubisoft has pretty much every other employee in the company working on Assassin's Creed stuff. So I guess that makes sense.
Lucasfilm Games suggested that the perfect era to set Outlaws would be between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
What's great about
What's the over-under on us meeting Luke and all of that? Do you think you actually have like a cameo with not George Lucas, with Matt Hamill or Mark Hamill? Jesus, the Star Wars fans are going to come at me. My name is Luke, and I'm like, Matt Hamill. Yeah, I think it'd be cool, like a little cameo. That'd be fun.
At that point on the timeline is this is a moment where the civil war between the Empire and the Rebellion is at its height. And this creates an environment across the galaxy where outlaws can thrive.
That's the world that Kay is stepping into, and she sees the opportunity just like anybody else.
We will see some really cool syndicates, both from existing lore and newly created for.
Senior creative executive. How do I get this job? Like that? That's glorious. Let me grab something. Save 45 minutes. Give me some extra time to do the job. So, yeah, it works perfect.
For the game.
When you play Star Wars Outlaws, you get a chance to discover what the underworld is like and live through those experiences.
The stakes are definitely very high for Kay's journey through the underworld, but she learns, she adapts, she sneaks around, and she finds herself in very important spaces with very powerful people.
Am I the only one that feels it's like a little jarring when you see the actress or actor that actually looks very much like their in-game character? It always throws me off a little bit, even though it shouldn't. It should be the opposite. But like seeing Christopher Judge playing Kratos, I'm like, okay, he looks different enough that it's not like that jarring. But it's always just like, oh, they're from the thing, you know? It's always kind of fun.
Building the world of Star Wars Outlaws, first thing we had to do was think of places where outlaws thrive. These hubs of scum and villainy.
The most exciting thing is being able to go back to iconic locations that people know and love, but then diving into the Lucasfilm archives and really bringing them alive in a new but very genuine way.
It's not just about recreating Tatooine as you know it. Going back to the classic sources of spaghetti westerns, we try to recreate an authentic mood and feel as we build new points of interest to follow the already established history.
I Googled one day where the term spaghetti western came up, and I know this is very random, but I just thought it was interesting. And apparently it's because way back in the day, a lot of Western movies were being produced in Italy. And so when they, like, those films made their way across the globe and people started watching them, the kind of slang term for them is they were spaghetti westerns, because they were made by not actual people from the West, but they were like kind of a sort of twisted version of it, which I thought was funny.
And there is a new location that we collaborated with Massive Entertainment on called Toshara. And this has been built from the ground up with the scoundrel fantasy at its beating heart.
Hang on!
Our goal is that you feel like you're stepping into Star Wars. And that means going back to those Macquarie concepts, going back to Joe Johnston's storyboards, Phil Tippett's creature designs, and creating a lived-in galaxy.
We're trying to create a world that feels alive and bustling with opportunity, that also is very grounded. And we're getting inspiration from the African savannah. But we still want to add the alien element. And that is what makes it feel like Star Wars.
We want to give Toshara some elements that make it really stand out in the Star Wars galaxy. So there are windswept plains, veins of amberine, and there's a vibrant city called Mirogana that's built into a huge rock that's been carved out by the wind that's ever present on Toshara.
That's beautiful.
One thing that we need to always keep in mind is there's always a connection between the biome and what grows there, what lives there, like the flora, fauna, and the culture of the people who inhabit the place. From how the plants pollinate, or how vegetation and local resources are used in local clothing and buildings, to even how the locals have adopted wind into their way of life. We have created everything with an authentic approach, so players will experience all these places like someone who actually is there.
We made it, Nick.
Working with Massive, we were able to really build.
What's interesting also is that this is a video from Ubisoft, but most of the people talking are from Lucasfilm. You know, it's just interesting to me. And I'm also fascinated by the working relationship between the two. Like, how does that work? Does Lucasfilm or Lucasfilm Games or whatever they are, Lucas Games, I have no idea. However they frame it, are they directly actively involved in production, or is it like most of the people we've seen, are they all producers? Do they keep a broader perspective on what's going on and how the game is shaping up? I'd be really interested in just like being a fly on the wall and figuring out how this actually works. It's really fascinating to me, like that they don't just give the IP over entirely. They're like, okay, we're going to supervise. We're going to make sure everything is to our liking, and we're going to approve everything that happens. And even then, like, how does this guy get into that position? How does he work his way up within LucasArts or Lucasfilm Game, whatever it is, to the point where they trust him to make sure that the IP is treated correctly? It's just fascinating to me.
Build out an authentic Star Wars world where you can travel, explore, and discover in a way that we really haven't been able to experience in modern Star Wars gaming.
The high-stakes scoundrel lifestyle and the open world promise allowed us to create a game within Star Wars that had never been done before. Not just exploring cities, but also getting onto your speeder and race across stunning wilderness. Then jump into your ship, the Trailblazer, and go on an incredible adventure.
We've only scratched the surface of what Star Wars Outlaws has to offer. There is so much more that you will get to embody and use and play when you become K-Vest.
Players are gonna love Star Wars Outlaws. It's gonna be exciting. It's very adventurous, and that's what makes it Star Wars. So I'm very excited to share that.
So, where do we go next?
Anywhere we want.
I think it looks good. I think so far what we've seen looks really good. Just the big question is whether it's too good to be true, which is a very valid question, I feel. I think.
Block Knighted Zaibatsu super chatted $9.99.
Thank you, Dilly Dilly.
I want to trust Ubisoft SOOOOO bad. But after purchasing AC Valhalla and all the DLC for it, I'm highly skeptical. On this one, tears of joy, they robbed me of almost $100 too many times.
Yeah, I totally get that. I will correct the typo.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
And, but with that being said, I totally get it. And this is why I've said it is very painfully valid to think this looks too good to be true to be coming from Ubisoft. I think that's totally fair. If this was like these trailers were dropping from a studio like Insomniac, I think you'd be more justified in being, dare I say, hyped. Dare I say, excited. And this is something I think people just don't seem to grasp sometimes. It's like the idea of skepticism is just to withhold judgment or withhold being convinced of a claim until there's sufficient evidence to accept that claim. And if you're saying this game is worthy of hype or worthy of excitement, that's something we can evaluate. And frankly, the studio it's coming from is a huge part of that. Massive. Rockstar is a phenomenal developer that really doesn't miss. In the history of their studio, they haven't. They have some of the best talent on the planet consistently. And they've demonstrated time and time again, they understand what their consumers want. And while their games don't tend to break the mold very often from the mold that they've already built, that mold is already for like the best possible game that most people want in that genre. So everybody's okay with it being kind of iterative based on the previous thing instead of totally different. And so I just think it's important to remember that like the studio behind it is a part of the consideration, and so is the publisher. And in the part of Ubisoft, it's sort of the same thing. It's developer, publisher, because it's all owned by the same company. And that's one of the reasons that I've been so hard on Starfield, and it's because the last thing they did was borderline criminal. And it's why I'm going to continue to be hard on CDPR with Phantom Liberty and whatever comes next. And with all these other studios that have had troubled releases. But the studios that have like demonstrated that they're capable of polishing stuff, that they care about that before releasing it and selling it to consumers, like Insomniac, I look at them and I'm like, okay, I am willing to give you the benefit of the doubt because you've demonstrated that you respect me as a consumer enough, you know? Luke, do you know why Rockstar does stupid stuff every once in a while? I feel like 2 months they do something dumb. I think it's like there's two parts of it. Take-Two Interactive, there's the executives, and they're the ones that like greenlight the remasters and remakes that were so terrible. And then they publish them under the Rockstar name. My understanding, and it could be wrong, but my understanding is that that is separate from Rockstar Games. Rockstar Games is sort of its own amorphous blob within Take-Two Interactive that does its own thing, and that the executives don't really want to mess with because they are their lifeblood. So they just kind of let them do their thing. So I think in large part, Rockstar Games only does something every 5 to 6 years. Whereas stuff might get their name slapped on it, but that isn't necessarily their work. That's my understanding. From Software and Insomniac have the most talented people in the gaming industry. Within their specific spaces, they have some of the most talented people for sure. Like Nintendo, the team that works on Breath of the Wild, some of the most creative developers in the industry. They just do stuff that breaks your brain. And you're like, I don't know why we didn't think of that. That's amazing. And from Soft, they have some of the most, I think they pay a lot of attention to detail. And as far as like action RPGs and big boss fight based games go, they are very, very talented. And Insomniac, they just are somehow able to make pretty large games that are graphically and technologically astounding, and they can do it pretty quickly, and they're always quite polished. It boggles my mind, but they somehow managed to do it. So I do think that it's worth, or they deserve to be given some extra credit for that. Kush, thank you for 2 months as well. Hey Luke, glad to be back on the channel. Had a hard time joining you live because of work and travel. Hope you and the family are well. We are very well. Thank you so much, my friend. And hopefully you're doing well as well with all of your work and travel. Good to see you, my friend. Larian is up there too. Yeah, Larian, if we're talking about RPGs, then yes. I like, video games are not just a singular pillar. You know, video games, there are multiple genres and niches within them. So a team that's really good at, say, like 2D platformers, if you ask them to make something like Star Wars Outlaws, they probably are going to have a bit of trouble because it's so different from what they are used to making, from what they specialize in. In the same way, like if you go to a sushi chef and you ask him to make American, like, pit barbecue, it probably makes some really good stuff, but it's probably not going to be as good as the people that specialize in that, you know? So when we say like, oh, From Software's developers are the best in the industry at what they do, yeah, I think that's fair. Insomniac, yeah, best devs in this industry at what they do, which is a very specific type of game. Same with, like, you know, Rockstar and all these other studios. And as for, like, there are some studios who previously were at the top of their game and since have fallen off. And some people are like, well, they've made some of the best games ever, or some of my favorite games ever. Aren't I justified in giving them that benefit of the doubt? And I think that can change. Great example. You think I'm going to say Bethesda? No. BioWare. BioWare made some amazing RPGs back in the day. However, they had two pretty big swings and misses. They had, of course, everybody's favorite, Mass Effect Andromeda, and then they also came out swinging with Anthem. And apparently they've lost a lot of talent, and that's the bigger problem. Is like if a studio has one misstep, they retain some talent, but if they have two missteps in a row, a lot of the most talented people there move to other studios and just shift around. The average stint, I forget what the exact number was, but I saw the stat, and it was like the average stint in the gaming industry is for somebody to stay at a company for roughly like 3 to 5 years. Basically, they stay for the development of one game and then they move on to another studio where maybe they get a little promotion, and then they move to another studio where they get another little promotion, and then they work their way up the ladder that way, because trying to stay within one company and climb the ladder is just not worth it. Has there been any news on Mass Effect 4? I feel like that just disappeared. Apparently they're just like heads down. Same with like Dragon Age, Dreadwolf. They're just heads down working on it. People underestimate talent management. What good is talented workers if you don't know how to make them team, or know how to make a team instead of romance? Yeah, and retain them and keep them happy. Like, the thing is, some of these guys, like the guy I follow on Twitter, we have gone back and forth every once in a while. Del Walker. This guy is like one of the most freaking talented game devs out there. He's designed many of the game characters from recent memory that you probably know about. And let's see if he has like pictures of his work, or does he have a link to it? Yeah, this is his portfolio. So like, he's worked on all of these games. He's designed these characters. So like, if you've ever wondered, oh, who made them look that way? Who designed this? Like, this is the guy, okay? He's him. He's the guy. So somebody like him is being sought out. People are trying to hire him. They want him to work for them. And so he's probably getting offers from a handful of different studios at any given time. And he could basically just waltz in and be like, hey, I've done all of this crazy stuff. Hire me. And then he just can, like, yeah, look at these paintings, dude. It's crazy. And they'll probably hire him. And when you are sought after that much, when you have that much kind of wind in your sail, the company that's currently employing you has to do a lot to keep you happy. And a lot of these studios are just kind of like, sure, go away. We'll hire somebody else right out of school and it'll be fine, you know? Bioware needs to go back to the drawing board in every sense. I think the tricky thing is that they just have lost a lot of the people that would normally be filling in stuff on that drawing board. So it's kind of like starting from scratch. Like, they have a really big name behind them, BioWare, but it's been, what, just under a decade since their last game that was received well. And that's got to be frustrating. I mean, nobody likes to be on a losing team. That's the bigger thing. Like, nobody wants to hang their hat at a studio that has been struggling. Nobody likes that. They want to work for the companies and the studios that are making the best stuff in the industry. Everybody wants to work on The Last of Us or on God of War or GTA 6. Like, everybody wants to work on those big name franchises, but most developers don't. Most developers are working on smaller stuff. Dude, I'm so glad I finally caught a live stream. I've been most everything you've uploaded in the last 5 years. Love the content, and also love that you openly say you love AC Odyssey. Well, thank you, Josh, for watching. That's tremendous. And also, yeah, I think it's very underrated. It boggles my mind that people just dismiss it wholly. Like, it's baffling. I think it was the first time I really disagreed with Jeremy Pinter of ACG. I think he said maybe it was Origins or Odyssey. Maybe it was both. But it was one of those two. And he was like, I would say this is a wait for a deep, deep sale. I was like, I just frankly don't understand how you could say, like, this thing is only worth $15-20. Like, it boggles my mind. There's so much there and it's so high quality and unique. Yeah, AC Odyssey starts to really lag later on. The last quarter kind of turns sluggish. But by then you've gotten 60 to 70 hours of, like, really quality content, in my mind. Some of the most memorable side quests I've had in a game since The Witcher 3. Truly. Like, it really is that good. They just kind of mess up the landing. I wished Valhalla was the next Odyssey. I think we all did. I think the first huge mistake Valhalla made was the setting. I just don't think... I remember talking to Cammie about this, and she lives in the UK, like right next to Sherwood Forest. And she was like, I asked her, is all of England kind of like that game? And she's like, well, kind of, yeah. It's just kind of flat and forests and trees and stuff, hills every once in a while. And I was like, yeah, I just don't think that setting a game in England at that time period was a good idea. It's just bland, flat, and broadly uninteresting. Like the cities are really small. And I just don't think it was a good setting. So I think from the moment that they set the game there, it was a mistake. I think they kind of were tripping right out of the gate. I agree. I think they should have stayed in Norway. They should have focused on Norwegian cities and had you go along that coast. That would have been way more interesting, I think, and way less generic. The Green Palette was awful too. I just think, like, I remember saying that in the critique, and people were like, but Luke, that's what England's like. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's still a bad setting. Like, I can fully admit that the plains of Kansas... Let me just show you a picture in case you don't live in Kansas, okay? The plains of Kansas probably are not a great setting for a video game. Just being real with you. Just being real, okay? Nothing against Kansas. I lived there when I was little, but this is what it looks like. So if you set a video game in this space and you make it look like this, technically it's accurate, yeah. But this isn't interesting to explore on the back of a horse in a video game. Yeah, it would be tornado-based survival horror. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. They actually did a study. They found that Kansas actually is technically flatter than your average pancake when you factor in like the little divots and pores in the pancake, which I thought was funny. So just because it's accurate doesn't mean that it's going to be fun. And that's the broader point. Setting a game here would be a mistake. It's just not that interesting. In the same way that I think setting a game in England at that time period before any big cities were built was just not that interesting. I just don't think it was a good choice. In the same way that like setting like a game where you sail a ship or something in the middle of, let's just say, like the Indian Ocean, like right here, probably not a great place to set the game because there's nothing to interact with. It will just be water forever. Maybe you'll find MH370 or something, but like just nothing. There's nothing there. It's like, I think, isn't it in the Indian Ocean that you're technically farthest away from any landmass on Earth? It's like somewhere right in here, you're technically the farthest from land that you can possibly be on Earth. Maybe it's over here. Over in the Pacific Ocean, there's just a lot of little islands all over the place. Let's see. Little bitty ones. What's this look like? Oh, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. I want to go to there. It's got to be a little stressful. Does anybody in chat live like on an island like Hawaii or somewhere like that? It's got to be mildly stressful being like, okay, we're kind of stuck here. There's no hopping in the car and driving for a few hours to get somewhere else. Like, we're here. Is that not stressful? It sounds stressful to me. You're talking about Point Nemo? Point Nemo, hold on. Point Nemo. Point Nemo is the location in the ocean that's farthest from land. It's at these coordinates. That's it. Okay, it's in the South Pacific. Jeez. Yeah, that's stressful. That's stressful. I live in Puerto Rico. Let's see. Yes, it's a little unnerving. You feel the isolation as soon as you land. Yeah, well, like my buddy Trevor and his wife Abby, who's Nikki's sister, they have lived on Hawaii for like, on Oahu, I think, for like a year. And they were saying that it's already kind of like, you go a little stir crazy because there is no, like, that's the big island. But even then, there's no just like, oh, let's go on a road trip. There's no, like, I don't really go on road trips or anything, but I have the option. Like, I know I could drive for like 16 to 18 hours in any direction and still be on this continent. Like, I'd still be okay. Whereas on an island, it's like, no, you're stuck, buddy. You're stuck. You know, it's like stressful. Do you think the Starfield Constellation Edition watch is worth it? Honestly, I think it looks like one of the stupidest things I've ever seen, but I understand that there's still going to be a lot of people that buy it. That's just me. A lot of people look at my gigantic Lego Titanic and think that looks like the stupidest thing ever. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask, but I will just say I don't think that it looks it looks like a good value. But it's still going to sell out, let's be honest. Yeah, Amua. I wish I still had that soundbite. Let's see. To be fair, I would say that Valhalla would have done so much better if they removed all AC from its existence and only sold it on being Viking rating experience. Maybe. I think people, because I've gone back and forth on this, but I currently, at least, I'm of the mind that I think people generally undervalue or underappreciate the power of a brand name like that. I think the name Assassin's Creed pretty much guarantees you're going to sell a handful of millions of copies within the first few weeks. And if it were just like Valhalla, the game, I don't think that would have done anywhere near as well, frankly. Top 3 favorite games released this year. I mean, I think I'd say Hogwarts Legacy, Tears of the Kingdom, and I am fully anticipating Baldur's Gate 3. Although that's been in early access, but not full release. It's complicated. And then by the end of the year, it might shift and it might be... I mean, I'd love for Starfield to like blow me away. I'd like that to be in the top 3. I would guess that Spider-Man's probably up there because that's probably going to be great. So it's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year. Avatar, maybe. Yeah, who knows? I'm guessing Avatar is probably like a solid 8 out of 10. That's what I would guess if I had to bet on it. Luke, did you comment on Ubisoft allegedly removing accounts for inactivity? Yeah, that apparently, from what I can gather, is just like a total nothing burger. I think it's a great example of misinformation and overreactions online, which I know is like frustrating because you're expecting me to like rage about it. But frankly, it doesn't seem like it's really Ubisoft's fault. Michael tweeted this out. This is horrifying. Ubisoft confirms they will delete your account and purchased games if you go inactive for too long. 3 exclamation points. Ubisoft ... What the fudge? Another example of why I'm becoming more and more concerned with the death of physical games. First of all, totally agree. Death of physical games sucks for the consumer. Totally with you there. And to demonstrate this, he points to a couple of things like emails where Ubisoft says that you've not been using your email or your Ubisoft account associated with this email address, so they suspend the account, and then you have 30 days to step in and reactivate it, otherwise they have to delete it. Everybody was like, oh, they're just going to delete accounts and take your money. First things first, we're talking about accounts that have been inactive for a while, like for multiple years. In some cases, people were saying it could be less than that. It could be within like 6 months. I've seen no demonstration of that. From what I can gather from official sources, it's years of inactivity. So first of all, from my perspective, if you have not logged into an account associated with an email in years and years and years, I'm not sure how much you value that account. But I understand it's frustrating to then have your purchases on the account lost. However, like I said, this doesn't seem to be related to Ubisoft. As you can see in the community note, Ubisoft is required under GDPR. I'm going to pull these up. To delete personal information if retention is deemed no longer necessary. Ubisoft's international terms of service indicated accounts may be deleted after 6 months of inactivity, while the US terms have no such provision. Like I said, they allow them to delete it after 6 months. It seems like the only time that they are actually doing it is in the case of like years of inactivity. And you can see this in the terms of use, blah, blah, blah. And as for this specific description of the problem, UB officials flatly insist that whatever happened in Tor's case, which is described up here, isn't normal, and that it has never deleted any account that hasn't been logged in to in less than 4 years. So they're talking about accounts that have not been logged into for 4+ years. And frankly, if an account has not been logged to in 4+ years, I'm not sure how much you value that account. Still, I don't think they should be able to just delete your purchases, but it seems to be a regulatory thing. Let's see. They go on describing this particular instance and problem. But what this is, the policy later states that in consequences of account termination or suspension, no credit will be given back. So they're not going to pay you for your purchases. You're not getting your money back. On face value, that's an unusually harsh policy. And if you take the time to uncover and read a particular Ubisoft support page, you'll glean it's all tied to Ubisoft's interpretation of the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. Quote, please be reassured that Ubisoft does not automatically close inactive accounts, the support page says. Quote, however, per our terms of use, in rare instances, we can take action to comply with some local data protection legislation. This is only if we have strong reasons to believe that the account in question will remain unused. We may also close long-term inactive accounts to maintain our database. You'll be notified by email if we begin the process of closing your inactive account. Basically, to whittle this down, some municipalities have laws and regulations that don't allow companies to maintain your personal information past a certain point that you're no longer consenting to. So like when you sign a terms of service that says we're going to hold on to your account, purchase history, blah, 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 that gives that company the right to hold on to that information about you, what you've purchased, your email address, all of that. However, when you stop signing terms of service, when you stop logging in and effectively consenting to them retaining your information, they now are liable under these different rules and regulations in various municipalities. Just because in Texas or Colorado, we might not have requirements like that, there are countries in the world where they are required to get rid of that information after a set period of time. And that seems to be what's happening here. If they look at an account that has not been touched in 4+ years, maybe even 5 or 10 years, they at some point are like, well, we're aware of this account now. It's not been used. We have no reason to believe that this person's ever going to log back in. So we need to get rid of the clients and the customers' information so that we're not liable because they effectively haven't consented recently enough for us to justify it. And when you hear it explained that way, it doesn't sound that bad, right? It's a policy to abide by personal privacy protections. It's not that they're just trying to steal your money. And this is why I said, like, it didn't really make sense that this was like a big scandalous thing at first. Because like, what does Ubisoft get out of it? They save 40 kilobytes of data on a server somewhere that says what you purchased and when. Like, that doesn't make any sense. There's got to be another justification for it. And people are like, oh, well, it's so they can force you to buy the game again. Well, if you haven't logged back into that account in 5+ years, what are the odds that you are their target customer? What are the odds that you would even notice the account being deleted if you've not logged into it in 5+ years? I can't remember what email address I was using 5 years ago. Do you think I really like if I have not logged into an account in 5 years, I'm going to even notice or care? Probably not. I've probably already opened another account, if in this case, probably already opened another Ubisoft account and have started using that. You know, so the whole thing just didn't make sense. And that's why when this explanation came out from the GDPR standards, it's like, oh, it's a privacy protections thing. You don't have to like it, but talk to your legislators that have laws and regulations protecting your privacy and information. Go complain to them, you know? It's just so dumb that people freak out about it. But I thought this was a great example of people seeing a story that sounds really, really bad and not thinking critically about it, being like, this doesn't make sense. Let's investigate what's going on. Instead, they're just like, like let's try to follow it through a little bit further. So fair concern, I think, from people, because Ubisoft has done crappy stuff before, but in this case, it just seems pretty cut and dry that this was more a privacy concern. Do you think Avatar will suffer from the Far Cry IP exhaustion? I think they're going to be very, very similar, but I think Far Cry players might not be jumping into Avatar as much. Like, I think Avatar has very wide mass market appeal. And if you don't believe that, just go look at the comments on the trailer, dude. There's a lot of people saying, I don't really play video games, but this is in my favorite franchise and I'm so excited. Everybody jokes about Avatar just being something you go see you go to see in the theaters, but nobody really cares about. But there are a lot of people, I mean, there just are, who do love the Avatar franchise. It might be weird to you, but like, it is the case.
Stefan Konstantin Dumitrash super chatted $5.68. This segment deserves to be its own cut, because there is so much misunderstanding and UB is getting flack for nothing on this one.
I agree. Jacob, let's cut it together. Stream clip on debunking the Ubisoft misinformation. I could also do it as its own standalone video, I guess, on the main channel. Maybe we do that. But either way, Jacob, we can start cutting it together. Let's see. I'm stuck between getting RE4 Remake and Street Fighter. Which one would you recommend? If you like fighting games, you're probably going to get more hours of enjoyment out of Street Fighter, but Resi 4 Remake is frankly quite good. So just kind of whatever you like. I'm not big into fighting games, so I would go with Resident Evil 4 Remake, but that's just me. What makes you excited for the game? New gameplay innovations. What makes you hyped for Outlaws, Spider-Man? They look like the same content, new skin type of game. Is it the story you're setting? Yeah, I would just be very precise. I would say I'm very interested and even excited about those games. I wouldn't say I'm hyped, because to me, I would define hype more as like a level of excitement that allows you to lose all critical thinking, which I try very, very hard to avoid. But with Star Wars Outlaws, I think it's a grand scope adventure game by a very capable studio, as far as I can tell, set in an established IP that has a ton of depth to it. And in terms of exploration and gameplay, being able to both explore planet surfaces and then go into space, have dogfights in space and stuff like that, it just looks really like a compelling overall idea for a game. I wouldn't expect it to win like any Game of the Year awards. I would love for it to if it's that good, but I wouldn't expect it to. But I expect like a solid game out of it, just like I expected a solid game out of like Jedi Survivor, for example. As for Spider-Man, like I said, Insomniac can't miss. Insomniac, pretty much everything they do is just consistently like crazy. It's very, very impressive what Insomniac is able to do consistently. So when they drop a trailer that looks really good, and it looks like this game is going to be pretty big, I think that warrants excitement or interest and intrigue. I don't think that that's crazy. Yeah, the studio behind it, I think, has a lot to do with it in the case of Spider-Man. And like Spider-Man, I would guess that it's like a really good game, but I would assume probably just like with the last Spider-Man, the full Spider-Man on PS4, I I would guess I play the story and then I'm kind of done with it. Some people like did the completionist stuff, but I don't find the collectathon stuff very interesting. I expect it to be a really solid game through the story, and then after that it gets a little hollow, but that's totally fine because the main story is probably going to be like 20 to 30 hours of content, and I think that's okay. Insomniac, I think, have demonstrated at this point that they're able to consistently drop like 9s out of 10, which is very, very good. And then as for Star Wars Outlaws, I'd say I'm less like super duper high, like excited and crazy hyped or whatever. I'm more just very intrigued by that because it's a really compelling concept for a game by a studio that seems, or at least it seems that Lucasfilm thinks that they're very, very capable. So keeping an eye on it, you know.
Neardridge super chatted $5.73. Hey, did you say the new low blow from Ubisoft about the inactive account deactivation, where if you don't log into your Ubi account for X amount of time your account can get deleted with all games?
Yes. We just ran through that, if that's what you're asking. But specifically that particular thing, like we just went through, I guess you could rewind. We're going to clip it into its own thing as well. Because we just talked about it like 5 minutes ago. But it's basically just a huge misinformation campaign. Not even campaign. It's just a misunderstanding where it sounds really, really bad. But when you actually look into it, it's something I think most people would be fine with. Because it's all related to privacy regulations and stuff, which it's just another example. Like, it's easy to get really upset about something, but sometimes you need to dig a little bit deeper. And the unfortunate reality is, like, Moist Critical or Mutahar and those guys, they can do a video that combined, their videos will probably do a few million views talking about that. And then I'll make a video debunking it and explaining why, actually, guys, I love to hate on Ubisoft too, but this is a stupid thing to rage about. And here's why. And that video might do 50,000, might do 75,000. That's it. You know, it's just kind of frustrating because the actual explanation is not anywhere near as exciting as the drama that you can get from it, you know? And I hope that like Moist and Mutahar make corrections about it, but I would guess that they probably don't, just because there's so much stuff to talk about. I love Mutahar, I love Moist Critical, but they move on from topics so quickly that often there's no corrections. And usually it's because, again, they'll make the correction and it'll do minuscule numbers compared to the original drama, you know? I appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you. Oh, geez. Thank you again. Very generous. You guys are popping off with the super chats today. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And yeah, they did fix the black flag thing. I thought it was funny. I made like a community post. I thought it sounded really dramatic or sarcastic. Apparently it didn't. I was like, well, after my video, it seems that they fixed the problem. You're welcome, basically. But apparently it just sounded like I was like, yes, thanks to my video, we've solved this problem. I was like, okay, I guess, yeah, in text form, sarcasm doesn't really come through that well. Lesson learned. But yeah, apparently they did fix the full screen issue. They did do some improvements, so that's good to hear that they finally got around to it. And yeah, apparently the game still doesn't run very well, but at least the full screen issue is fixed. Dude, yeah, drama gets views. You're damn right. Damn right. Don't think Spider-Man 2 will have the same impact, though. It went for 9 out of 10 because of innovation and web slinging gameplay. Spider-Man 2 seems like it would be very similar to Spider-Man 1. Yeah, I would expect it to be kind of like Tears of the Kingdom. Like, it's going to build on the first game. It's going to make the first game feel really kind of bland in comparison, which is what you kind of want from a sequel. just takes the first game and cranks every knob up. But, you know, I would expect it to still feel very similar. Some people are going to try it and just be like, so it's just Spider-Man 1.5. And that's fine. There's going to be people who feel that way. But I would expect it to be pretty compelling. I would agree that it's probably not going to be as like much of a wow factor. It's not going to get people as crazy hyped as the last game did, because the last game was something pretty novel and new in the modern gaming age. It's been a while since we had a Spider-Man game that was that universally praised, but it happens with sequels, you know? It's one of the things we talked with Jor about on the podcast a lot, was like the difficulty with having all of these franchises that are at like the 2 or 3 game, or the second or third game in the trilogy time. So like God of War, people are starting to feel a little bit fatigued. Same with Spider-Man. After this game, they're going to feel a little fatigued. And The Last of Us, they're on the second game. Are they going to do a third? People are starting to feel a little fatigued. So with all of that, Sony's going to have to find some new franchises and IP to get people really excited, so that they're not just pumping out the third or fourth game in that franchise one after another. Because usually it's like the second one, people are like, okay, that was good. I want to take a break. I need something fresh. And then the third game comes and they're like, okay, that was good, but like I'm actually kind of sick of this now. So I think it's important to shake it up a little. It's going to be interesting. You ready, Jor? Oh, awesome. Let's get Jor in here and talk to Jor. The one and only Jor Raptor. The man of dinosaur myth. He roars, he claws, he stomps his feet. And then he eats a kid. Let's call him. Let's see. Oh God. My virtual camera is very vertical. I don't know why that is. Okay, we got Jor. Can you guys hear Jor? The one and only.
Yes, I see myself as well.
The national treasure himself. Exactly, guys. Well, let's hear it. Why are you against the PS5
song,
Pro? Oh, you like it? I think you should make it the starting song for every one of your videos on your channel. I think it'd be good.
Not good for the retention though. I remember that was like pre-YouTube, like the early age. Everyone had, of course, the Ali A one is the most like famous one that they like turned up. I don't even know what it was, but like it would hurt your ears. Either way, thanks for having me again, and great to see the chat already popping off.
Yeah, no, we're feeling good. We're feeling good. We've been chatting about a lot of stuff. We debunked some of the stuff with regard to Ubisoft and that stuff. I don't know. What were your thoughts on all of that?
I mean, I only saw the headlines, so I was like, okay, I'm not surprised that they're doing this, but I'm also not surprised that it's like not as bad as it sounds, because that's usually kind of how it goes. It's always like, if Ubisoft does something, it's just extra fun to make fun of that. And sometimes it's legit, for sure, what's going on with Skull and Bones.
Mm-hmm.
But other times it's like, okay, yeah, of course, it's just funny. And also, sometimes you feel like if another company would have done the same thing, they would have gotten way less flack for it. But
yeah, and I'm pretty sure every other major company does this. Like, this is not scandalous. I think I just got an email like a couple of months ago because I had like I think it was like a Turbo Squid account. It's like an online platform for selling 3D models and stuff. It's used by people. And way back in the day, I signed up with like a Yahoo email address to that website, and I sold some of the 3D models that I had made back when I was really into 3D modeling stuff. And I haven't logged into Turbo Squid with that Yahoo email address in I don't even know how long. I have no idea. Like, I still have that Yahoo email address, and I forward like priority emails to my Gmail, but like I have no idea when the last time I logged into that was. Years and years and years ago. And I got the email a few months ago that they were going to terminate my account because I'd been inactive so long. And on the one hand, you're like that, why would they even need to do that? That's stupid that they would even do that. But then you realize, oh, well, there's probably regulations about privacy and retaining customer information and all of that is very, very valid. And it's just frustrating to see so many incredibly smart and I think very respectable creators just like throw out all critical thinking when they are discussing Ubisoft stuff, because it's way easier to just jump on the super negative headline instead of being like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Let's investigate why they're doing this.
Let's read the page.
Yeah, nobody even bothered to do that. It's very frustrating.
I do think that this is like the start of the podcast. So should we do like the regular intro and stuff? Otherwise,
yeah. Why don't you? I think I did it last week. Why don't you?
You're right. So yeah, this is the Free Roam podcast that we do every week. It's been a holiday period for me. Joyce and Dennis, who work for the channel, they have been. It's their second week off. So I've also been kind of touching grass and stuff like that. But I still got some holidays like actual where I'm actually like leaving the house planned. So I'm like during this period still doing some stuff here and there. But that's why we could not make last week's episode. But yeah, here we are back and we are discussing the news. I think the best way to describe it is for the types of games that we usually also discuss and that you listening or watching probably care about. So the open world single player type games, PlayStation, Ubisoft, those kind of things. Of course, broader than that as well. And we stream live on Luke's live channel every week. And we're aiming for Wednesday. But again, sometimes it's different. And apart from that, we got some cool topics. The chat is popping off. They insert questions. We're going to have a good time. And we actually have some fun news to discuss. You already touched on, like, for people that are listening to the audio or joining later, you already touched a bit on Star Wars Outlaws. But I want to have I want to ask you about a weird thing that happened during Ubisoft Investor Call that happened last week. Like, they're still very secretive about a certain game. Then we also have PlayStation 5 Pro. You already mentioned it briefly. I'm not sure if you already discussed it here today, but we got some leaks regarding that. I'm curious what you think about it. I want to go a bit more in depth on the extra Insomniac game. For people that are not aware, a producer came on like a podcast and said, hey, I'm working on an unannounced game at Insomniac. And that's interesting because we already knew about Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine, so this is something else. That's kind of crazy. Is it multiplayer? Probably. And then we have also some other optional sort of topics that we can go through. There's like one news story from you, also Ubisoft related, that nobody picked up. So we can like talk about that as well.
I'm ready. It's been a relatively active week. A handful of things to discuss. We can jump into it. The first thing I think we should just touch on is something we just did a kind of debunk of on the stream, relating to Ubisoft before we get into discussion of Star Wars Outlaws,
Sure.
Red, and their financials and stuff. So earlier this week, there was sort of a story that broke and went pretty viral, frankly. It was kind of all over the place. And effectively what it was, it started from a tweet from Legacy Killer HD, Michael, if you don't know, Michael. And he is a content creator I follow. I watch him. He does really good stuff. But every once in a while, it's common for YouTubers to kind of get tempted with the negative headline because it's really funny to watch Ubisoft screw up, and frankly, they do it a lot. So the news story broke from some people that were sharing stories that Ubisoft was going to delete accounts that hadn't logged in over some period of time, and that would make you lose not just the account, but all of your purchases and everything associated with that account. And this sounds really, really bad, especially because you can dig into the terms of service, and it says if you're in the certain jurisdictions, I'll say, they can delete it after as little as 6 months of inactivity. And that sounds horrible. Like, oh, Ubisoft's just going to delete your account after you've not logged in for 6 months.
Then it's suddenly your problem that they're not launching new games that you want to play.
Yeah, exactly, through their specific launcher. So I looked at this story and I was like, hold on, this doesn't really make any sense. I don't understand what they'd be getting from this. This doesn't add up. And so I tweeted out the following. I said, I just don't understand what Ubisoft gets from this. Let me tweak this for people who are listening or watching the VOD so you guys can see it on screen. There we go. So I just don't understand what Ubisoft gets from this. Like, they save 40 kilobytes of data on a centralized server, noting that an inactive account owns X, Y, and Z games. If they're trying to force people into buying new copies of games, in other words, delete their previous copy and force them to buy again, I don't think this will do it, since they're just deleting inactive and abandoned accounts. Not exactly an ideal customer. I just feel like I'm missing something. Now, this is because when you see a news story that doesn't make any damn sense, I think you should investigate and figure out why it doesn't make any damn sense. Because usually there's an explanation. Normally there's something that explains why this is happening. Whether you like it or not, normally there's something going on. And it turns out there is something going on that's much less exciting than people, I think, we're hoping for. Effectively, this is all just a big nothing burger tied up into privacy and user data protections laws and regulations, which is almost less exciting than it sounds. It's not Ubisoft trying to steal your information or steal copies of games that you already bought. All it is that in cases of somebody not logging into their account, in the case of Ubisoft, they said their policy has not been enforced on accounts younger or that have not been touched in less than 4 years. So they've only done this for accounts 4 years or older. And it's because in some places throughout the world, there are privacy restrictions that force them to delete user data after a set period of time. And the exact instance of this is tied up in what's known as the General Data Protection Regulation, or the GDPR. And it says, quote, please be reassured that Ubisoft does not automatically close inactive accounts. However, per our terms of use, in rare instances, we can take action to comply with some local data protection legislation. This is only if we have strong reasons to believe that the account in question will remain unused. We may also close long-term inactive accounts to maintain our database. You will be notified by email if we begin the process of closing your inactive account. So it's not like they're just going to drop it.
Yeah. So you can probably get an email like a week or maybe even like a month upfront that says, hey, click this link, log in, and you're fine.
Yeah.
Probably right. Yeah.
And it makes sense because it's basically just a privacy thing. Like, they are saying if you don't consent to them holding your info by logging in and signing the terms of service, they can't hold your info. And that includes what you've purchased and when and how. And frankly, if you haven't logged into an account in 5+ years or 4+ years, I don't think it's that shocking that they consider you to be an abandoned account. It just doesn't shock me. I'd prefer that they never delete the account, but this is more a concern with local legislation for data protection. So I take it up with your lawmakers.
It's just that people are, of course, scared that everything is moving into this digital future and that this stuff can happen. Like, I think that's, of course, where everyone, like, you already have certain games on a disc. I think Avengers actually will always have the offline mode. But like, there are like Anthem. Usually if you buy a game on disc, it works forever on that console unless that console breaks. Like, we're now in a day and age where if you put in Anthem or any other live service game that shut down or whatever, like, you can't play that disc. It's useless. So people are, of course, like, scared about that, and everything slowly moving into digital. I think last year in particular, we saw some very interesting things. Or was it this year? Damn, time flies. But like where Nintendo is even launching a game day one digital, and then a month later with the Metroid collection as a physical release. Like, if even Nintendo, who I think like most of their sales are still physical because like their audience is younger and mostly parents buying stuff, I think. If even they are like experimenting with this, and we hear Alan Wake 2 is not even coming out physically, which is crazy. Like, if you said that to someone 3 years ago, that one of the probably highest rated games of the year will not have a disc version. And then you hear stuff like this. Okay, so we're all being forced to go digitally, and then I might lose access if I don't like log into an account. Like, I can see why it's kind of scary. Although in this particular instance, it's not that scary than the headline seems to be.
It seems to be one of those cases where it's not about whether the story is true, it's about the idea within the story.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I think that's why it went viral, even though I think it
Ubisoft.
matters if it's true. Like, yeah, and it's Ubisoft. It's just really fun to poke fun at them. But this is a policy that pretty much everybody enforces. And so you shouldn't, in this exact instance, you shouldn't be upset with Ubisoft. You should be upset with local legislators that have made laws that say companies can't hold your data past your consent for them to
I
hold your
even
data.
know like a worse version of this, and that is G2A. Like, they have an inactivity sort of fee. So if you're, I think it's even like 6 months or something. I just get this like email regularly. So if you like sold something on that platform, or sometimes like get your money back or whatever, if you're not active on G2A, they will just take money from you from that balance. So I'm like, what? So all the time, like every time I'm reminded that G2A exists, I see like,
it's something
50
really
cents.
negative.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, there we go again.
That's insane.
Yeah. So that's like the other side of it.
Wow. Well, so anyway, guys, that story, I would love to jump on the Ubisoft hate bandwagon, but unfortunately, we're here to debunk the bullcrap.
Yeah. We are aiming for the truth. I think, like you said, I think you should make a main video on it. I think you already got it in your head, so it should probably
Yeah. It's like I said though, to everybody here on the stream before we started recording the podcast, it's frustrating because like Moist Critical, Mutahar, guys that I love and really respect as creators. I love them dearly, and I watch almost everything they do. But they can make a video kind of knee-jerk reacting to this and distributing it, and that will be seen by 2, 3, 4 million people across their videos. And then I'll make the debunking video and it'll do 75,000. You know, like at what point it's just frustrating that there's not more concern with what is like with the corrections, what's factually actually the case. Even though we love the idea of the story because it demonstrates a point we want to make, I think the truth does matter. Otherwise, we're just kind of the boy who cried wolf. And when something bad actually happens, nobody takes us as seriously because we cried wolf so many times about stories that were kind of nothing burgers like this one. So,
yeah.
Jacob in chat, maybe we'll do a last minute main channel video. We'll put that up tomorrow. We'll
last minute, okay.
Yeah, we'll panic.
Well, this will be a very short podcast.
Bye, guys.
So let's move on to more truthful Ubisoft news, because we got the investor. So I think you can like sit back. I want to like talk about some highlights.
Walk me through it.
Every quarter Ubisoft does their financial, just like other big companies, of course, and I'm a sucker for them. Like I think it's very interesting to hear them talking to investors instead of media or creators or whatever, or like the customers like directly. So there were some interesting things. I want to like go over some highlights. For example, I think this one is interesting. The employee base for Ubisoft is down by more than 1,000 compared to last September. And that's mostly thanks to a tight control on recruitment. So they have like 20,000, I think, in September. That like 20,000 people working there. Seems like they're down to 19 or maybe even 18 if like that stat from September was already kind of different. So that's pretty big. Like they're not recruiting a lot of new people. Probably when someone leaves, it's like, yeah,
That's
we will figure
wild.
it out. Yeah.
I mean, it's also crazy if they're saying that's mainly been done by just not recruiting. So they're just
tight control on recruitment.
They're just anticipating losing like 5% of their workforce annually. Like, is that what they did? Like, that's that's crazy, dude. Like,
yeah.
I mean, maybe it could be contracted workers. That could be it. It could be contracted, or is this specifically describing full-time and part-time employees?
I think employee base. So I do think it's like full-time.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah, but they have like a ton of studios, like everywhere in the world, of course. Also, like on Mirage, which was like a DLC turned into a full game, there are like more than 500 people working on that. Like for comparison, Horizon was made by 300 full-time employees at the peak. Last of Us Part 2, 200. Mirage, which like a way smaller game, 500 plus.
It's crazy. Like these games, these Ubisoft games are they're made by so many freaking people.
Yeah.
It boggles the mind. Like just to see a picture of the studios and the people that made these games that they sometimes tweet out when the game goes gold, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like Santa Monica Studio, they're all in one room. And, you know, Guerrilla, they're all in one room. And then Ubisoft, it's just like a satellite image looking down. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, like every like team inside or like every Ubisoft studio like posting their own version of that image. So yeah, that's interesting. Like they did also like nuke a lot of jobs. For example, here in the Netherlands, that this pretty large office that like they completely closed and everyone left. There were like 23 people working there. So they did like they are moving away from their local sort of communication to having more like for Europe like a central spot that will then communicate to all the countries instead of having an office in every country. So that's like a big change already. So Q1 for Ubisoft, which like April, May, June, it was mostly like the sales were better than they expected. That was mostly because of Rainbow Six Siege. It's doing double digits. That's how they of course like to phrase it. Double digits like increased revenue versus last year. So it seems like Rainbow Six Siege going up again. Division 2 also doing well. They even mentioned that Riders Republic, remember that game, also is doing well for them. And Far Cry 6 as well, because it was, I think, published on PS Plus Extra. So it got like a huge boost from that. And The Crew 2 had like the highest number of players because of Motorfest that is coming. So even though I think like around me, I'm not hearing like a lot of people talk about that game. It's coming out in September. But like the fan base, the racing fans are high on it. And yeah, it might be like a cool sleeper hit for them.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Yeah, Mirage, they expect the most from that in their financial year, which is kind of interesting. Like they're really banking hard on that, and probably the pre-orders are pretty great. And then kind of the about like the mobile game Assassin's Creed Jade, it's being made by Tencent. Like what happened? So that's the China game that looks like Odyssey but set in ancient China, and they got like Tencent paid them to use the Assassin's Creed license and make their own mobile game about it. And Ubisoft is only like getting that from that upfront payment, which like a few $100 million, which is kind of crazy. And they're also getting money or royalties, it's what they call it, from all the in-game purchases. So it's mostly a Tencent game, not a Ubisoft game.
That's crazy. That's going to be probably just, I mean, for Ubisoft, that's got to be a slam dunk. Get a few $100 million, you do nothing, and you just supervise that the IP is not being mistreated and then,
butchered,
just something totally terrible, and then you just get royalties on it. And the royalties probably aren't. I mean, if it's making billions, it's probably gonna be crazy.
Yeah, they say they were pretty great because again, like they were probably only help with the marketing. That's probably gonna be it. So
I mean, I'm gonna try it, and I can't stand mobile games, but the leaks for that and what we've seen of that, pretty impressive. It's pretty crazy.
For sure. We have like, by the way, a super chat that I wanna Near Drake. Do I pronounce it correctly?
Sounds right to me.
By the way, is it confirmed how big AC Mirage is in terms of hours in completion with all the side activities? So what they said is that it's gonna be similar to the first Assassin's Creed game, and I, for videos, looked at how long to beat, which was like 10 hours or 10 to 12 hours for the main story, then 20 hours if you also want to do all the side content, and then 30 hours if you want to get everything. And that sounds about right for Mirage as well.
Yeah. Really nice, kind of lean, mean, smaller game. Which is exactly what I'm looking for. So that excites me. Maybe for some people that's a bummer, but to me that sounds awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And then you also have time to finish it before Spider-Man comes out, which is also nice. I guess like it's like 1 week apart. So, and then we have like the kind of crazy part that you can maybe also show on the screen. So they talked about their upcoming lineup for 2024, which on like page, well, it feels like we're in school, but it's like page 4 of their financial briefing. And if you like scroll to page 4, then on the bottom you see, okay, so their financial year 2024 lineup includes, so this is the games they plan to launch between now and March 2024. Includes Assassin's Creed Mirage, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, we know that's coming December 7th, Rainbow Six Mobile, yes, really, Division Resurgence, which also a mobile game, another large game. Okay, we will get back to that. They mentioned Just Dance 24 Edition, because instead of it being a new game, it's now like an update to 23, but they will still have a physical version, it seems. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Luke, I, by the way, looked this up, and this game is like $50. I thought it was like way less.
Oh, really? Oh, God.
Yeah. It's like the same price as Mirage.
Oh, that gets tricky.
Yeah. Skull and Bones. They still plan to launch that. Although what they said during their investor call is they have this beta August 25th, and they say that will be a cool milestone to see how far they are. Like, it really seems that if the feedback is bad on that beta, they will probably, push it even further.
Blows my mind.
Which is great. Yeah. And then we also have the Crew Motorfest, which we already talked about, and X Defiant, that Call of Duty free-to-play style game that probably will do better than anyone ever expected.
Yeah,
which is
certainly better than Ubisoft initially expected after that
Oh,
first reveal. I mean, just work through each of these real quick before we get to the large one.
Sure.
X Defiant, the responses have been really, really positive from everybody I've seen that's played it. Especially like even hardcore Call of Duty streamers have played it and are very positive on it, which is wild. And seeing the success, especially kind of another wave of success for Rainbow Six Siege, I think Ubisoft knows how to keep games kind of like this going. And if they stick the landing with X Defiant, there could be another player in town, which would be great. Crew Motorfest. Oh, go ahead.
One more thing about X Defiant. They also like talked about the fact that they did not like pay influencers yet to play the game. They did have like their sort of open beta launch event, I think. But like that's how Apex Legends, of course, became that big, right? Everyone was playing it the day that it came out, like the biggest streamers ever. So if Ubisoft is like going to, like, they haven't really marketed this game yet on like a huge scale. So a lot of people are just picking it up because they're like tired of Call of Duty and want to have something else. So again, it bodes well for them. Yeah,
absolutely. Crew Motorfest, I got to play this for like 3.5 hours. I thought it was pretty good, actually. It's based on playlists largely, which, you know, basically they do a lot of stuff in it. It's not a simulation racer, but there is depth there if you want to get in and tweak the minutia of like what percentage of your braking is in the front versus the back. And like there is stuff to really tweak if you want to get into it. Planes still fly like garbage, as do boats, but the driving is pretty solid. I thought there were enough playlists that I could see having a good amount of fun with it, especially with friends. I didn't get to play any like PvP anything, no racing with friends or other people in the demo thing that they were doing. So I don't know how that is going to be, but I would imagine playing with friends, you could actually have a good amount of fun in this. And for hardcore racing fans, I think it's going to be awesome. Skull and Bones. Do we need to even say anything? I mean,
no. The game will speak for itself, and I hope it's like better than we think. But I'm just tired of like talking about it. But it really like it was supposed to launch, of course, like in 2018. But like this newer version was supposed to launch November last year, and they're now like working on this PC only beta while the game is also coming to console, and they will just see that as like a good milestone to see where they are.
Yeah, like it.
Ouch.
I cannot wait for the Jason Schreier article that comes out when this game finally launches, or when it's delayed again. Like, I just want to know what's going on in here, because it seems like nobody even can figure out what the hell it.
There was one already, like a one on the that basically talked about the whole fact that Ubisoft has to launch it because of the Singapore government.
Yeah, the
That was
Kotaku article. Yeah, like 2 years ago. And back then, 2 years ago, they were like, yeah, they've swapped through 3 or 4 game directors, and everybody's super frustrated. And at the time, it's really funny reading the article now, because it's like, we expect them to shove this out any month now. They got to just get it out. And now it's been 2 years, and they might delay it further. It's just crazy. Prince of Persia Lost Crown, you're saying that's priced at $50. That's surprising.
Yeah, I saw that on my local. Yeah, maybe we can like look at the Ubisoft. Yeah, I saw that as well, and I was like, no, that's not how you do it.
That's a
because
lot.
Imagine if they like did it like a real Prince of Persia, like a big one. It would only be like $20 more. That's weird, right? That's weird. So.
Yeah, for those
maybe
of you
they're
that,
like, yeah.
Just for those of you that don't remember what this is the reason that we're like kind of shocked by that price is because it's this game that was revealed at the Ubisoft forward that they did, and it's like the side-scrolling 2.5D game, which frankly I like. It looks good for what it is, but $50 is a surprising amount. I was expecting like 30, maybe.
This is a perfect Ubisoft Plus game. Like, get that subscription for $15, play through the game.
Yeah. Or like if they sign a deal for Game Pass day one, that could be good. But $50 is aggressive. Maybe we'll play it and we'll be like, oh my god, I would have paid $100 for this, but I don't expect.
I think it will be like, it's great, but wait for a price cut. I think that will be probably the notion.
Yeah.
Okay.
As for other ones, go for it.
The other large game is basically the other thing, because that's weird. Like, we learned from Kotaku in May that because in May Ubisoft also talked about we have another large game next to Assassin's Creed Mirage and Avatar that is gonna come out before April 2024, and then Kotaku came out and said that other large game is Star Wars Outlaws. Then a few weeks later, Star Wars Outlaws was properly revealed. We got the reveal trailer. The gameplay looks awesome. But now, a month after the Outlaws reveal, they still mention that they have another large game, and they don't call it Star Wars Outlaws. So there are two possible options here, because there was one investor, and that's what I like about the investor calls as well. These investors, they of course got a ton of money into Ubisoft, so they also ask really good questions, because it's of course it's like they're from a bank and they make like a huge investment, but still they are like up to date. So this person was really, is it Star Wars Outlaws? And then Ubisoft said, we should not assume anything at this stage. And then they kind of like dodged a lot of questions, but they never said this large game was unannounced, and they also never said that it was not Star Wars Outlaws. But yeah, another like question from the investor was, is it true that Star Wars Outlaws is only launching on, I think, Epic Game Store or like Ubisoft Connect, so not Steam? Because it's still not up on Steam. They also would not talk about that. So it's weird. Like, what do you make of it? Like, are they, because of Disney and Lucasfilm, they can't talk more about this? Because that's, of course, the crazy thing. If this is that other large game, then they still think it's going to launch early 2024, which probably way too ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, because the same company, the same studio is putting out Frontiers of Pandora just allegedly a few months before. Like this is...
Yeah, it's a different team inside, but it's the same studio.
It's the same studio. Like, and normally you would expect the studios to at least take like a year between, like you would think. So... very, very surprising. I mean, if it's not Star Wars, for one, like, it's just weird that they don't say we're hoping to get Star Wars Outlaws in this time period. I don't know what would prevent them from just saying that's our goal. It might wiggle outside of that window. we're just not sure yet.
Yeah, maybe Disney. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe Disney has weird requirements, or they're like, you can't say anything about release until Bob Iger has kissed you on the mouth or something. I don't know. But it is surprising, because if it's not Outlaws, what the hell is it?
I see Stefan in the chat saying maybe Beyond Good and Evil 2, but no. Like, that game is like even further out than Skull and Bones. Like, that game, I think, this year got like a narrative director. Like, they're still so far behind, and of course, a lot of things went down in that studio with Michel Ancel. Also, I think outed during the whole sort of purge, where a lot of developers from Ubisoft were outed for like horrible behavior. And like, so they're still like, don't I listen to all these investor calls, they never mention Beyond Good and Evil.
Everybody knows that it's like not even worth.
It's not happening. And even if it's happening, will that game sell well? I doubt it, unless like really, really good. Because we know about that, but nobody else actually. Like I think the only other possible thing is that Immortals game that I've been like talking about for some time. And I think that makes sense. Like, announce that at the Game Awards, launch it in March. Like, why would you need that big sort of window, right? That big reveal to release for a game like that. I think that would be perfect, like 3 months. On the other hand, though, if it's not Star Wars Outlaws, why was that game already announced? If it's coming out at the end of next year, why do a San Diego Comic-Con panel? If you, like, they're doing a lot of marketing for it already. If it's really that far away, that's weird. So.
I agree. It's because they just like yesterday dropped like 5-6 minute behind the scenes look at it.
That was at San Diego Comic-Con on a Saturday.
It's, I mean, maybe the possibility, maybe it could go either way. It could be that they are sitting on Star Wars Outlaws and they're waiting for LucasArts to do something. Lucasfilm, what's their game division called? Is it Lucasfilm Games or
I don't know.
I can never remember. But either way, like maybe they're waiting on something from Disney to give it a firm release date. Maybe and if they have to push that back, they're going to release that Immortals game last minute, there. I don't know. But it is just weird, like especially them being so freaking cagey about it. Because I don't think the investors would have been that shocked or that pissed off if they had just said, we're aiming to release Star Wars Outlaws during fiscal year 24. It might slip into early 25. I don't think they would have been that upset about it. But if they, like, this is just strangely vague.
It's for Ubisoft also, like, they need to show investors that they have a good lineup because they did not have one for the last few years. So that's why they might be like doubting this, this another large game. But they were asked directly, is it Star Wars Outlaws? If it was not Star Wars, they would have said no. Why would you like keep that in the air, right? Why would you not like, kill that rumor? And again, Kotaku basically said it. And if I never thought we would see Star Wars this year because they announced it in early 2021. Another theory that I have, and then we can move on, but like maybe this Immortals game, because that's a big learning from Mario plus Rabbids that Ubisoft had. They actually went to Nintendo, and Nintendo was like, don't launch the game on the Switch now. Wait for the new one, because that's what if you think about it, that's what Nintendo does as well. For every big one of their big franchises, so Mario Kart, Smash, they only launch one game during the whole generation. Apart from Zelda, of course, but these are like quite different. But there's still no Mario Kart game on Switch, even though this is a Wii U port. Mm-hmm. So they said to Ubisoft, hey, don't launch the game now, but Ubisoft did it anyways, and the game flopped. So maybe Immortals is like, because there's already Phoenix Rising, they're saving this for the new Switch, and that's why they maybe cannot say it yet.
Maybe like, that could be interesting. Yeah. Because I mean, allegedly we're approaching the end of the current Switch's life cycle.
Yeah.
Which I think would be great because
I hope they like have Switch, a trailer. Yeah, I hope they have a trailer like at the end of this year, just like for the Switch. I think they also had like one in the winter, and then they of course launched the device in March or something.
Yeah, how did they announce the Switch originally? What was like the first big?
That was that
announcement.
video where like you have like the guys playing basketball, like stopping to play NBA on the Switch, and like the girl bringing the Switch to the party, and everyone is playing
Oh,
1-2 Switch,
yeah.
and it's like we all thought nobody's gonna do it, but it actually happened or something, right? It's like
Yeah, and it was just like everybody, like a very serious adult gathering on a rooftop, and they just bring this out, and they're all playing on the tiny screen. I remember this, yeah. And
when was it released? In October?
this was October of 2016. Yeah. That's wild. Man, yeah, and this was so exciting. Do you think that they're just doing, this is a slight
Switch or Skyrim?
Switch. Yeah. Oh, and it looks so much sharper than it actually does on the console. But slight detour. Do you think that they're doing a Switch 2, or do you think that they tried it like, basically a Wii U situation, or do you think that they try to do something totally new?
I actually was like working at like a toy store, like a big one in the Netherlands, when the Wii U released, and everyone thought that the U-Draw, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
The U-Draw tablet from THQ, that was the Wii U. So they brought this package with like $60, like this iPad weird thing where you can draw on, to like the counter, and they were like, oh, do you like, this the new Nintendo console, right? I have like a Wii at home, so I just buy this and then I have a Wii U, right? Like nobody understood it, which is crazy.
That's freaking hilarious. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Real quick, thank you, Neared Rage, for becoming a member. Appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah.
Got your badge.
Nice.
Welcome. And Sean, our patron saint. Sean, thank you so much. Hey guys, love this collaboration. First time I've caught a live one. That's tremendous,
awesome.
my friend. Thank you for coming by. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people like only watch on Monday or can only like draw by on Monday, so it's the first time they see this.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
That's cool.
We also, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to say, like, I think they're doing a Switch 2, but they will probably call it not 2, but because like Nintendo really they don't want to reset everything again. That would be stupid. So it might even be that your digital games work on the Switch too immediately. That would be wild.
That would be very nice. Yeah, that would be very nice. Just, and dear God, if they can make one that like fits big boy hands a little better. I cannot play on the Switch without my pinkies going numb after like 5 minutes. It's an actual problem. People have said get the bigger grips, and that helps a little, but
but then it's like a beefy thing as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's gonna be very interesting, because I think the first year for the Switch is still like the best year the Switch had, with like Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and Splatoon 2 and ARMS even.
Oh wow,
like
ARMS, dude. Yeah. I was so pissed I spent $60 on ARMS. I played it for like an hour and a half, and I was like, oh, so this is like the whole game.
It was like fun though. I played it actually on an airplane, like with the motion controls, and it's like
I'm sure your neighbors
looked at me
loved
with
you.
like, what the heck? Yeah.
Oh man, dear God. Drinner, also thank you for the $10, my friend. What's up, fellas? Totally off subject, Luke, but I saw your short about Phantom Blade Zero, and all I can say is I'm calling full BS on that game. Total pipe dream. I think the animations look really good, but I think I said it in that clip. It's easy to make a Soulsborne style game look decent in trailers. Those games depend a lot on how they feel when you play them, and that's going to be the big question for that. There's a reason why From Software is so respected.
So for people that don't remember, this was like announced during the PlayStation Showcase, right? And it had like really cool, still like the sort of Soulsy feeling, but then with way more cinematic sort of sections where it was like on a cart and it was like a whip, and like it was like kind of crazy. It looked really cool. I personally think that Rise of the Ronin will be like, I totally believe that game is legit. While I do agree, because it's also like a mobile studio making Phantom Blade Zero, that it's kind of wishy-washy if it will actually turn out like that.
Yeah,
totally agree.
And Tico, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you for the 2.
Yeah, thanks everyone for the support. So yeah, from the Switch to the or did you want to add anything to anything? Because then I want to Okay.
That was my diatribe. I'm good.
Do we have like a sort of a sad music because another game got shut down?
Hold on. Yeah.
Like really sad. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, it's so sad. Sad royalty-free music. Emphasis on that. Okay. Okay. Emotional sad piano. Here we go. Let's see. Okay. It's going. I don't know if you can hear it, Jor, but it's going.
Oh, I can't hear it, but it's fine. That's fine. We got an important update for you. The Roller Champions experience is going to change moving forward. Considering the activity that we've been seeing in the game, we've made the decision to let tours and pick a prize become the definitive Roller Champions experiences. In short, they are not doing updates anymore for Roller Champions. We thank you all for being along for the ride with us through this point. And we hope you will keep enjoying the definitive Roller Champions experience. They know how to spin it. There's still a ton
spin it, how to roll it.
But it's so interesting that, because did you see this? Like, did you notice this? Did you like, or because that's also very telling. Like, this tweet has 54 likes. And it's like the game shutting down. It's like a very important moment in this game's life.
This is the funeral.
Nobody, like 26,000 people saw this tweet, which is like anyone, like you don't even have to like have a really big following to get that much. So it's kind of scary.
This was a game I think a lot of people didn't even realize had launched.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's not a bad idea, but it's just one of those games that I think they announced really early and then they showed it off a few times. People didn't realize it released. And like in the live service game, if you release and then after a month people still haven't jumped in because of a miscommunication as simple as just, oh, it's launched or not launched or what, you're done. Like there's not much you can do. And you're right. I mean, 54 likes on a tweet like this is freaking hilarious. That's so bad.
And nobody picked it up. No like major news outlet or whatever like picked this up. And I really think they just didn't. Like, I follow this channel because I did like play a few rounds when it launched, and I'm just always curious to like follow these accounts to see what the community is up to and kind of see the engagement on those tweets, which was really bad for Roller Champions. I mean, they still lasted pretty long. They even had like a Jet Set Radio sort of event, but that of course, did not set the world on fire. But it looks pretty cool. But this was really in that day and age where everyone was like trying to make a new Rocket League style game.
Yeah, everybody's trying to make Rocket League mixed with Splatoon, and it's just
and like Knockout City was like similar, and you got like the other like that also shut down this year. They all have like similar names.
Yeah,
I'm kind of blanking on. Like,
it just goes to show you, like,
wrestling game, WrestleMania.
Like you can have one really successful game like Rocket League, and then every company is like, okay, let's make our version of that, but it takes 3-4 years to do, and then they get it out, and everybody's like, what? Oh, I remember when I played that in high school. Like, everybody's grown up by then. The trend's over. You can't copy a phenomenon like that. You have to do your own thing, and this unfortunately just wasn't it. Except those 54 people are probably very upset.
Or they're liking it. They're happy that it's over.
Like, finally.
They can finally play other games.
Oh, yeah. By the way, everybody, like the stream. That does help. That does help. Thank you, my friend. And another super chat. Thank you, Taz. Hype makes you stupid. And Joe Raptor, wonder when the next video will be. I do agree. Hype makes you stupid. And Jor, when's your next video?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as I said at the top of this show, so a little earlier in the stream, we have like kind of this holiday break right now where Joyce and Dennis are both not working. They are like or getting their deserved holiday break. I'll actually be going to Spain in the coming days, so I'm hyped for that. And next week we will be back for full force. But there are still 3 videos dropping this week. One of them is like going over the big games that are still coming out in 2023. So look forward to that. And another one is the Sunday video that I always do every Sunday. So yeah, that will still be happening. Only I won't be doing it. Someone else will. pretty exciting.
Interesting.
Kind of scary.
Compelling.
But yeah, next week we will be back full force.
Full force, baby. Yeah, we're going to start getting games releasing in August again. It's going to be refreshing and wonderful.
I mean, Remnant is out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wait, like, here's a good thing. So I'm going to actually play it after this stream. So,
oh, baby.
Kind of interested.
Interesting.
Want to jump to Red real quick? I thought it was curious to hear this. I'm not sure. It's kind of like older news. It's kind of like a leak, and I'm just not sure what to make of it. So someone over on Reset Era, I think it was, John Harker, who is like a known insider according to the mods who verified him or knows things. It says, he's described as known things in that community. So, I mean, we can of course still take it with a grain of salt, but yeah, there is something, some truth to this. They said that Red, so Assassin's Creed codename Red, the Japan game from Quebec, the Syndicate, and Odyssey makers, that it will be the last of the Origins formula.
Ooh.
Game is slated for next year, probably. So a cool PS5 Pro launch game. But more on that in a second.
That's interesting. So what exactly is described by Origins for? Does he just mean like doing the sort of weird spin-off Witcher 3 inspired type of thing? And then after that...
Yeah, sorry, go.
I was just going to say, like, after this, it's just, I guess, more specialized games like they've described, like games that are focused on more, environmental storytelling or other games. Like, are they going to try to get into third-person, like, action narrative games, kind of like Sony Santa Monica's been doing? Like, what is...
I think Exe will probably be more like that. That's my read on that game. But I think my read on this, like the last of the Origins formula, to me says that they, of course, with Origins started something, and Odyssey and Valhalla were basically the same type of games, like very similar, but yeah, in a different setting. So Origins launched. There are like many, like apart from the overall RPG structure, because that's kind of my thing. I don't think there will not be a new Assassin's Creed RPG after Red, because they make a ton of money. Like, they're the most successful Assassin's Creed types of games now. But what you did see was that Origins started this, okay, we have the sort of more grounded Egyptian, or of course, like the origins of the hidden ones, like how did that came to be, but also like the whole story was pretty grounded, and then they got crazy with mythology in the DLC. We had like item packs at launch. It started with a mount and an armor pack. Then with Odyssey, they added the naval stuff. You had your Raven. Like, there were like many things that all these games had, but they built on top of each other. You had like a Reda character where you could go to get like free Helix items if you were lucky. There were like dailies. There were like weeklies. They really like took a lot of things from those games and put them in the next one. And of course, like, Red with Japan makes sense for that as well. Like, have a very grounded sort of story in that setting, and then for the DLCs, go crazy, like going to Atlantis or whatever, but then in the Japanese mythology. That's kind of my read on it, that they will just really follow something that worked for them for a long time, instead of maybe really trying to reinvent what an RPG could be for the Assassin's Creed series. That's kind of my read on it.
All right, I mean, that makes sense, I think. And people probably aren't that frustrated by it. I mean, it's not a bad idea. Nerd Rage, thing for the super chat. Does that mean Red will be on the same engine that Odyssey, Origins, and Valhalla used, or will it be just referring to the RPG formula?
I mean, spoiler alert, all the Assassin's Creed games are on the same engine. So,
like, same tool set, kind of like how, like, I don't know if they've made any big upgrades or anything like that with Reds.
No.
But I would imagine it's like a generation newer compared to what Mirage is going to be using. So probably closer to what like Pandora looks like, because that's apparently their next gen engine.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think so as well. Like, but I think like Mirage really looks like Valhalla. I do think that this, because it's also like the first next gen only Assassin's Creed, like this will not launch on PS4, Xbox One, so that's already exciting. But maybe it won't be like, my sort of thing with this news is that it maybe won't be that jump that we wanted when you think of like the jump that we saw before, like from a Black Flag to Unity, right? Those games are also, still similar, but also quite different in terms of the scope and what they were trying to do. But you did see that when looking at the trailer, you saw immediately, okay, this like feels completely new. Maybe we won't see that as much with Red. That's kind of my read on it, that they will still play it safe and do things that worked for them, instead of really trying to from Syndicate to Origins, completely different games. So maybe that will be won't be the jump that we see this time.
It's one of the frustrating things. I think people look back at the last generational shift and saw just how crazy big the differences were. I mean, you look back at like GTA, or maybe the better example is like Red Dead 1 versus Red Dead 2. Those are technically a generation apart, and night and day. You know, it's crazy. However, like, it's just not, we're in a different age now where the improvements are more incremental. You know, think of a logarithmic scale. It kind of plateaus as we get higher and higher and further along. And that's why a lot of the improvements and advancements right now are being made in things like ray tracing or global illumination tech, or discussions of AI and NPC behavior. And I think that's where the bigger changes are going to be made, which is an interesting shift into another topic, a PS5 Pro update, sort of a mid-generation refresh, which this report comes from the one and only Mike Straw from Insider Gaming. And basically what's described are some leaks related to the PS5 Pro, which is codenamed Project Trinity. And allegedly, it's already having demo events held to showcase the improvements. It's also stated that the majority, quote unquote, majority of studios will receive dev kits by late 2023. And this would be targeting a release in like November of next year. As far as specs are concerned, those, according to the report, that have been tough to obtain. However, two things that we do know is that the PS5 Pro will feature 18,000 MTs memory. I'm not sure what MT is. I'm not sure. Maybe Google it. I'm not sure. And 30 WGP or working group processors. Cool. Sounds good to me.
I mean, what you read for the targeting, improved and consistent FPS at 4K resolution, a new performance mode for 8K, what the heck that ever means, and accelerated ray tracing. Like, that's, I think, what we want. Yeah. Right?
It sounds like 4K native 60 is what they want. That's what they want. And they will have a performance mode running at 8K, probably like they did with the PS4 Pro, where they did like the checkerboarding upscaling and stuff like that. So it will be better than just putting a 4K signal and letting the TV stretch it. But then again, an 8K display, I'm going to tell you this as somebody who used to sell TVs. The size that an 8K TV has to be for you to visually see a difference with your human eye is larger than most people's houses or apartments. Like, it's ridiculous how big that display has to be for you to sit at a reasonable distance where you could see the entire screen. Like, you're talking about like an IMAX screen, basically, is what we're referring to. So 8K is going to be a little stupid. I would much rather them just crank 4K 120, which maybe they'll also support. They reference better FPS stability, so hopefully that just comes with straight up 120 frames support at 4K, which would be awesome. And talk about like pushing PC devs a little bit, because right now 4K at like 130, 140 is only really possible with like a 4090, like a $1,500 graphics card. So, or maybe it's like $1,1700 now. So to have a console, which maybe the PS5 Pro launches, well, I guess that's another question. Where do you think they price this thing? Where do you think this lands? Do you think they
500?
slash the PS5 and this just becomes 500?
No. I think it will be similar to the PS4. Or do you mean slash like decrease the price for that?
For like the base PS5 goes to like 350, and then the PS5 Pro takes over the 500 spot.
I mean, we already have rumors that they're gonna do like a slim version. Like, let's not forget that there is a $400 PS5 out there. That's the digital edition. And like the rumor, of course, that we also discussed before is that they're gonna do a slim model that will just be one without a disk drive. And if you then for probably $400, and then if you want the disk drive, you'll probably have to pay like $100 extra to get like the disk drive. But that will probably stop a lot of people from even bothering, and then more people will embrace the digital future as Sony would like, because they get way more money from that. So I think it will probably be PS5 Pro, 500, 550, and then the PS4 or the regular PS5 will just stay 400. Like, I don't think they have to, because I think like even launching the Slim at 400 is already a pretty significant price cut, even though the digital PS5 was 400 as well. But it just feels like the digital PS5 was never really available from what I see. I don't know anyone who has that.
I have a digital, right here actually. It's
bought the
in
only
studio.
one.
I was the one guy. So I have a digital and the regular, and you know it's fine. Maybe they fix it by now, but I've outlined many times before. I've had a nightmare getting games I previously played on PS4 with a disc working on this, even if I buy another copy that has the digital license. Like it's a nightmare. So hopefully they fix that and streamline it, because basically like I played Death Stranding with a disc on the PS4, but then I can't play that on the discless digital PS5 because I can't put the disc in. So I bought for $10 another copy of Death Stranding digitally to play on this, but the software in the PS5 still thinks I need a disc. Which is mildly infuriating. But anyway. One of the interesting things about this mid-gen refresh is paired with some news that came out about a month ago. It's very interesting. PlayStation is doing a mid-gen refresh next year. They're doing the Slim. They're doing all of that. Apparently, according to a couple of articles, Microsoft, speaking on the Digital Foundry Weekly podcast, it was revealed that Microsoft allegedly views the Series X as their mid-gen refresh, and the S is their standard machine. And in other words, the Series S is their like standard bearer. That's their main console, and they view the X as already being the mid-gen refresh that launched 3 years ago, which to me makes me wonder what the hell does mid-gen refresh mean at that point. That doesn't make any damn sense. And I think this would be really, really surprising if this is how they're actually approaching it. They say the Series S is actually the standard console for this generation of consoles by Microsoft, and the Series X is the upgraded version of it that they basically launched 3 years earlier, even though the Series X is what's directly competing with the PS5.
PS5, yeah.
This is wild.
I mean, I think there are like two ways to kind of look at it. And one way is that, as we also learned through the Activision and Blizzard and FTC sort of court battle, that they are not really in the business of doing consoles anymore. Like also Phil Spencer on the Kind of Funny podcast, he was like talking about the fact that they already lost the war. And even if Starfield is on 11, there won't be people that will sell their PS5s to get an Xbox. Like they are really like thinking beyond that, because they don't think they can beat Sony at Sony's game. So that's why they are going everywhere and trying to get Game Pass on your Samsung TV or your freaking roaster. Like it has to get everywhere. And I think that also then makes sense for them to not invest in another console and not invest in another machine, when I think like already the PS5 is outselling the Xbox Series, I think 2-1. So so would it for them really be smart to alienate or like their audience even more when right now it seems that they can't even sell enough Xbox Series consoles? So, and of course all their games are launching on PC anyways. So like for Sony, it makes sense that they wanna like have because when Spider-Man comes out, you will be only able to play it on PS5. So if Wolverine, for example, launches next year and you want the best possible version, you only had to choose, like, you could only go for the PS5 version. But with the PS5 Pro, there was actually a second better version that maybe might entice more PC players to also get a PS5. Maybe that's their approach. And for Xbox, doesn't really matter. It's just that they also want to be in the business for home consoles. But they don't care if you play it on PC or via your mobile phone, stream it there. So that's probably why. I do think it kind of sucks though, because I wish the Series S, even though I know it's great, because I also talked to someone like this week where it was like, yeah, I bought the Series S, like $300, and I can play all the new games. I do still think that, especially if we hit the like end of this life cycle, which is 8 years, at least, like the court documents also reveal that Microsoft thinks that the PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox, like the real new one, will launch at the end of 2028. Then this whole generation for third-party games wasn't that big of a leap, because Microsoft put out a console that, sure, was better than the One X, but not that much.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks. And that's why I think we're also seeing the PS5 games, like with Final Fantasy 16, that are really blowing me away. And yeah, we just haven't seen that yet on the Xbox console, or as far as I can see, like their own exclusives.
Yeah.
Are not like from that fidelity standpoint, but
and I can understand how they're like, well, we have two scalings that you have to get games at on Xbox. You have to get it running on the Series S and the Series X. So why would we introduce a third for an even higher fidelity? That's just plus, I mean, it's probably not going to sell too crazy great. I think it actually might, but just optically, it's also surprising that Microsoft is just like, yeah, we're not even going to bother doing a mid-gen refresh. That excitement that comes, like, love it or hate it, there are a lot of people that at this point, even 3 years into the gen, would be very happy to pay for a higher end console that doesn't have the restrictions the PS5 currently does. Like, for my stuff, yeah, if I can choose to buy a console that's going to run this stuff at 4K native 60 without having to do something blurry and gross like Jedi Survivors did, I would much rather do that. Like, I don't want my games looking like I smeared Vaseline on my display. Yeah, I'm much happier paying a little bit extra. That is a privileged position, certainly, but that's why the base PS4 or PS5 Slim, it will still be available. So very surprising to me that Xbox is just not gonna do it, seemingly. It's baffling to me.
Maybe they also saw like the One X didn't do that well. And of course, I think you also made the point when we discussed the PS5 Pro the last time, that last time it was really needed because 4K displays were like way more common. And then to still have like, still with the Switch, I'm never gonna like hook that up to my TV, because I don't want a 1080p image on my like OLED 4K. So I'm just like, and I prefer the handheld mode anyways, but it feels like really ancient for that system to not have a 4K mode. And like that was, of course, the reason why these mid-gen refreshes made sense. Although, again, like we said, I hoped that we would be in a 4K 60 situation for all the upcoming games, but that's sadly not the case. And I do think the PS5 Pro will do that. Like, so
yeah,
that's already for me enough to get it. I think we also got like here Spencer saying, are we getting a PS5 Slim later this year too? So the Pro is like 2024, but the Slim is still rumored to launch this year. So like, and they could just like, because they don't want to like announce that and launch it a few months later, because then it will hurt the current PS5 sales. So they will of course wait and then launch it immediately. Let's see, we got some extra questions here that I see.
Any issues with the Series S so far has literally been a developer end skill issue. I've heard two conflicting things. Some people, this usually seems to be coming from like the more Xbox sycophant types, they say that there's no difference between them. A handful of devs I've heard speak on it and that have gone on Twitter explaining their position say it is a real bottleneck that limits what you can do. It just is, specifically within the memory. So I'm not a game dev. I won't pretend to be, but it seems at the very least it's an open question, and game devs that have spoken on it seem to be pretty clear. The Series S, Xbox requiring developers support Series S versions of their games has been frustrating for them because it is weaker. It just is.
Yeah. And for all the third-party games, again, especially probably as we near that end life cycle, the base model was usually like PS4, Xbox One was the same, and now it's like PS5, Xbox Series. I wish that was like the baseline, but no, there's like a $200 cheaper machine below that.
Mm-hmm.
Which totally is going to hurt those games, sadly a bit. And that's, I think, why Baldur's Gate 3 is not launching on Xbox. Because they just can't get the split screen to work on that console.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're not going to do it.
Just can't do it. Wouldn't it be a bottleneck on PC if that was the case? Well, the great thing about PC ports is that they can put it up on Steam with system requirements, and if your PC can't run it, it just doesn't run it. Whereas on Xbox, if it doesn't run it, they have, like, they're not getting certified by Xbox to release it. Like, Xbox has to basically give you permission to release on their stores. You can't just, like, hop on and sell for, like, on Steam, it's like $100 application to be a Steam developer, and then you can list a game on Steam. On Xbox, you got to go through certifications, just like with PlayStation. So, yeah, I mean, a game can be demanding on PC, and it's not that big of a deal by comparison. But anyway, yeah, mid-gen refresh, Sony's getting one. Xbox fans won't, and apparently not even like a slim version. So what you've got is going to be all there is for, I mean, pretty much a decade.
It would be funny if they just launched the Series X again. Like, this is our mid-gen refresh. Here it is again.
The Series Z. It's just the same thing with a Z sticker on it.
Yeah.
We're trying to recapture some of that excitement. Oh, man. Well, let's shift forward to this. We kind of touched on this briefly. The new Insomniac game. And
third one.
Basically we know they're working, of course, on Spider-Man 2. We know they're working on a Wolverine game.
Yeah.
We didn't know they were working on something else, but apparently they are.
Yeah.
Which is surprising.
Yeah, so I think we already touched on it in the sort of and you, of course, early in the stream, and I a bit at the front here that, like, yes, just a producer was like on a podcast, hey, I'm working on an unannounced game at Insomniac, and then it's immediately like, what, we already knew about 2 big AAA games. So from my understanding is that the Spider-Man 2018 team, or at least like the leaders, like Brian Intar, the creative director, he immediately after that game shipped went to work on Spider-Man 2. Then there was a different team inside Insomniac, probably with a lot of like regular Spider-Man PS4 people that then worked on Miles Morales. But Miles Morales had a different game director and a creative director, and they are now doing Wolverine, while that 2018 team is doing the Spider-Man 2 game. So you have those 2 teams. But like you also mentioned, I think during the stream, we also had the Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart team that launched a game in 2021. With it now coming to PC. So, and they always had, like, back before they were bought by Sony, they had like the VR teams. They had like huge deals with Oculus, and even with GameStop. I'm not sure if you remember that, where they like launched very small, like Song of the Deep, like very small sort of indie style games for GameStop that wanted to try publishing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, they always have like 2 studios as well, and I think just like the main studio is like the Marvel studio, and then the other team is doing something else. And I'm not sure if you already want to add on to that, or I can like add some extra research that I found.
Yeah, go for it. Walk us through.
So they like also 2 years ago, so I think in 2021, I have to check. Here, June 2021. So around the time that they actually shipped Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, they were hiring for a multiplayer project. Yes, a systems designer is what they needed. And if you like, it's still up, or actually there's like an older article about it. So what they wanted from the system designer that worked on the multiplayer game, that they would have a thorough understanding of melee combat systems, enemy design, and boss design. And the designer would help develop combat, navigation, progression, and economy for a multiplayer environment. Sounds like a Spider-Man game to me. Yeah.
A Spider-Man multiplayer game? Gee whiz.
I mean, that would be printing money, right? But there is this other thing, and because I think that just makes too much sense. And also, like, what the system designer has to do, that just sounds like Spider-Man to me. But there was also this like other job listing where they said assist in pre-production, planning, and new IP development with creative directors. So they're also throwing new IP in there. And of course, it's kind of getting wishy-washy if it is like a new IP, because like a new intellectual property with like a Spider-Man multiplayer. Although if you think new IP, it's probably like something completely new. But yeah, that's kind of all the info we have about this.
I mean, it makes sense. Sony, as we've said, is doubling down on live service stuff. They want more multiplayer games that can print money, because why not?
Sure.
And this seems to be their I mean, once again, another studio working on it. A handful of their best studios are allegedly working on multiplayer stuff, and it's crazy to see, because I think everybody just assumed, oh, Sony, they do really good single player games. But like I've said before, we're going to start to see over the next few years, a lot of Sony's announcements are tied up in multiplayer games. And you shouldn't get too bummed, because like they're still making the single player games. They're just filling in the empty space between with live service games. But buckle up.
Or I think the realistic future is that it's the other way around. That they have these live service games and they fill the empty spots with single player games.
Yeah, it's all a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah. But it's like you said, like the coming years, like we already saw that with the May PlayStation Showcase, where the 3 new games they announced were all live service. So, or like even 4 if you like count the Bungie game, of course, as well. So kind of scary. And now Insomniac doing it as well. But I mean, at least we know from them that they have Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they will make Spider-Man 3. Like, why not?
Exactly. Well, and I mean, we might get Wolverine and just be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I forget Spider-Man. I want more of this. So you never know. But I do fully suspect that there's going to be a shift in, let's just say, player excitement or player perception towards Sony, because I think it's going to feel like a bit of a 180. Like that feeling we all had after that Sony showcase earlier this summer. I think that's going to be a pretty common feeling for the next couple of years, because most of their announcements are going to be tied up in the multiplayer stuff. And a lot of people are going to be like, where's Bloodborne 2? And they're like, well, we don't have it, but we have this weird multiplayer game where you shoot people while saying that you're a good person for not shooting other people. Like, it's going to be really frustrating. So buckle up. It's going to be really funny.
I gotta say though, like I'm not sure if you watched the latest Spider-Verse movie, but that like no, you totally should. But that like basically showed what a live service Spider-Man can be, because there are so many like iterations of Spider-Man throughout the many years. And they basically had a sort of hub space where all the Spider-Man would hang out together, and then they would be like go on a mission, go to a different like universe, and then like do a mission, take out a boss there, and then return to the hub. Like it really felt like, okay, so why is this not a game yet? I really think it could be great. Like they could really print money if where you make your own Spider-Man, or like pick one of the many Spider-Man that have been released throughout the many years. Like that would be crazy. Like make a gotcha Spider-Man game. Sony.
Yeah. Are you allergic to money? Yeah, they'd
like Genshin Impact, but with Spider-Man. Oh
buckle up, everybody. I bet that they just like pitched that to executives at Sony, and they were just like, they stood up.
They got a
walked
little wet,
over,
I think.
grabbed a couple of bags full of cash, threw them at him, and said, "Go now, do it."
Why haven't you started yesterday?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, shifting forward a little bit, keeping the ball rolling, let's just quickly touch on the last couple of things that we have in the dock, such as Resi 4. Resident Evil 4 Remake has surpassed 5 million units worldwide in less than 4 months, which is quite successful. That's pretty good. That's pretty damn good. Resident Evil 4 Remake was released in March of this year. This implies that the popular remake has managed to sell over 5 million copies in less than 4 months. Shortly after the game's global launch, Capcom announced that the remake sold over 3 million in just 2 days. Oh, baby. That'll do.
Yeah.
That'll do.
And it's on track to sell more than Resident Evil Village, which for a remake is of course wild. So it might become like the best or like the fastest selling Resident Evil ever.
And I feel like they marketed Village a lot more. At least I remember seeing it a lot more with like billboards and all sorts of crazy stuff. So word of mouth for 4 Remake was very, very high.
Yeah, and I think it will totally be like in the Game of the Year discussion for some people. It probably won't win, but it will probably be nominated, I think. Probably. I still need to play it. It came out, I know what I was doing, but I still need to go back to it.
I thought it was really good. I'm not like a hardcore Resi fan.
Same.
I thought it was good and decent. It made me appreciate the groundwork that this game did. It certainly has that Resi clunk, but it was a good time. It was a good time. It made me wonder when we were getting the next one, though. Which was interesting because that was also reported. What did we find out, Mr. Joel Raptor, about Resident Evil 9?
Well, if you've been following like Capcom leaks, I know it's kind of specific, but you have like one insider, Dusk Golem, and they like always show up. They said they retired like a few times already, but then they still hear something and they want the cloud, so they go to the Snitchers Discord of all places. Like Snitch is another leaker. They now made like a Discord. Dusk Golem is like chilling there and saying that is aiming for a 2025 release window and that it will likely be announced next year. So that would be, I mean, they have been like doing this every other year release cadence for Resident Evil now, I think for a very long time. So this makes sense. And then it will probably be announced at the Sony showcase like they usually do. Maybe they have a demo out, which they sometimes do, and then it launches like in early or the spring after that.
I've been trying to think what they name this. Like if it has a 9 in the title, how do they? It's like, okay, so it's IX. So maybe it's like, it's Resident Evil Mix, or something like that. They're gonna do something stupid with the name because they just love to do that. But we should be getting something in a while. But they're taking their time. Yeah,
that's not all though, because Capcom, of course, they're really doing well. Every year they're making more money than the year before, which is kind of crazy. And Dusk Golem also says there's a big Capcom game being announced at the end of this year that is releasing in fall 2024. So any guesses for what that might be? A big Capcom game announced at the end of the year, probably Game Awards then.
Big Capcom. I mean, Capcom did Monster Hunter, right?
Yes.
I mean, if it's a Monster Hunter universe or whatever is after World, I'm just gonna be real, guys. I would cream. I would lose it. Oh God.
It's probably that, right? It feels like World came out in 2018. Feels like a really
that long ago. Really?
Yeah. They had the Iceborne DLC in September 2019, and of course some post-launch updates still after that. But like the last one they launched was of course Rise on Switch, which then came to console and PC, or first to PC then to console.
Oh, and dude, it was January of 2018. It was almost 2017.
Man. Yeah.
That's outrageous. I feel
so
ancient.
If that team has been like at work on this next gen only Monster Hunter game for that long, obviously they worked. I think they do have like 2 teams though, like Rise and the World team. Although of course the sort of director is I think overseeing it all. But yeah, that would be huge. 20 million units sold for World. It's the best-selling Capcom game ever. And of course...
Oh, did we lose your audio? Oh, he's working it. He's fixing it. I'll fill in the dead air. I mean, I think this is a no-brainer. If, in fact, that team did shift after Iceborne and move towards working on whatever this next game is, I mean, that's a moneymaker right there. I would lose my mind if they announced that. Talk about one thing that would get me giggly excited at the Game Awards. That's it. That is a layup.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, okay, I'm back. I'm just like so excited, and then I like hit something and it all breaks. But we're back.
Ripping cables and stuff. I'm so excited.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
man.
kind of the Monster Hunter thing. I'm not sure if you want to like do one extra Borderlands type of thing.
Yeah, we could quickly touch on it. Because why not?
Yeah, they basically want to like launch a compilation. That's kind of the leak. So that was also rated like a Borderlands compilation Pandora's box from 2K. So yeah, I would not be surprised if there's like the handsome style collection. So Borderlands 1, 2, and pre-sequel, but for PS5 and Xbox Series.
Seems like a no-brainer.
Not sure if you...
Easy money. I mean, I'm not crazy into Borderlands. The one time I did get really, and I played a lot of Borderlands, was like, it was in college. It was a very snowy day. I think school had they canceled all the classes because there were like 4 feet of snow outside. So we just stayed in, and then me and my roommate Corey, he had just gotten edibles, and I tried some, and then I melted into the couch, and we played split screen for like 9 hours.
Oh damn!
And
second game or first game?
I was so toasted I don't remember. But I remember having like a decent time, and it was like kind of fun, but like the next day I was kind of I mean, it's okay. The loop has never really hooked me. It's always like fun to play with friends for an afternoon, but I've never been like, it sounds good tonight, Borderlands. It's just never hooked me that way.
No, I get it. And like it's crazy how they first like went for this realistic art style. I'm not sure if you remember, like it's like a long time ago, but the first time they announced Borderlands, it had like this brown sort of realistic art style, and now like how it looks, like the colorful sort of cell shaded look, is like really part of the DNA, which I think is interesting. And I'm mostly curious about Borderlands 4, which like Borderlands 3 came out in 2019. I played that game a lot, almost all the DLCs. Like the DLCs are usually really good, but they also had really good free updates every month, which was kind of crazy. But I'm curious what they will do with Borderlands 4. Will they still make it like similar to the older games, or where you also had like loading screens between zones?
Yeah,
it kind of felt old school, but it's also like part of the Borderlands sort of feel, because that way you can like easily reset different enemies and stuff like that. And like they already tried with all the updates, but are they? It feels like, because Destiny is basically Borderlands, but like full on live service. I would not be surprised if Borderlands 4 goes into that direction more as well.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And you're right. I had not seen this original trailer. This is the original. For those of you listening, you'll have to look it up. Borderlands E3 2009 reveal trailer. Totally different from what we ended up getting. In like a shocking way. Not even close. Like for 2009, clearly targeting photorealistic. They were trying to be very grounded and gritty. And then you compare it to like the very, very iconic Borderlands art style that we have now. It's just crazy to see. Wow.
It looks still great though. Like this trailer from 2009.
A lot of these games back then are so undersaturated. I don't know if it's that like that was in the age of some of these big blockbuster movies that also did just the gray color grading. Like I feel like Zack Snyder did that too. All of his movies are super gray, but that was like Man of Steel was like 2013.
I think like before the update or before the podcast, you also talked about how Insomniac had like only like great games, and I'm not sure if you remember. Oh, damn, what's the name? That's the problem with this game. So they announced a game that looked a lot like Incredibles and Overwatch, like way before Blizzard, and that was called Overstrike.
Okay.
You probably know the trailer if you look it up. I'm not sure if it like fall into your story now. You can like maybe.
Let's see. E3 2011.
Overstrike. Yeah.
Overstrike. This. Okay.
I know the name that they changed it into because this is interesting. Like this has more that cartoony Borderlands style. It's like you have like 4 characters. They all have their own different ability. Like this looks like a freaking Reinhardt shield.
Mm-hmm.
And then they like sent the bullets back. And every character had like a pretty unique sort of personality, and the enemies were pretty funny as well. At one point, there's like a huge boss that then turns out to be a robot or something. It's like pretty cool. So again, this was 2011, and this looked really like fun. Insomniac to me. Like if you like fast forward a bit. Like,
oh yeah, that's straight up Incredibles. The bubbles and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like the boss, and but then they changed it to be more. So they basically did a reverse Borderlands because they changed it into Fuse. And I'm not sure if you remember this game.
Fuse. Hold on. I don't think I do. So it was turned into a game called Fuse.
Yeah, Fuse game. Insomniac.
Fuse launch trailer. Let's see. And this trailer came 10 years in 2013.
Yeah.
Okay, I can still see some of the DNA, but yeah, very different.
And it just became that brown sort of very uninspired look. Like you still have the same characters, but
publishing with EA, that's weird to see.
Yeah, and that's also like, if you think about it, Insomniac, like I still think Sunset Overdrive is my favorite game from them, although Spider-Man is totally like it depends on the day, but I really hold like Overwatch or Sunset Overdrive really, I thought it was really, really special. But if you think about it, the only successful games that they launched were with Sony, like Ratchet and Clank, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, and it's funny because Sunset Overdrive comes out and it's like they just all of a sudden realized, hey, we're really good at this kind of thing with like crazy, wacky, fast movement. And then that's what they did. Because this game is like polar opposite to that. It's like slow moving cover-based shooter.
Yeah.
And so it's just fascinating to see them kind of experiment with different stuff and then eventually figure out what they're really, really good at.
I really think that only like 100,000 people played this, maybe even less. Like it really, no one played this game while it was like this huge. It also had like the worst sort of box art error where they cut off the heads. Either way, that's a small history lesson.
Yeah, that's
Insomniac,
crazy.
love them, but yeah, that game just, it felt like poorly managed from. I mean, it must be EA, right? They were like, hey, we don't want this cartoony stuff. Everyone is making realistic brown games. Let's do that.
Make our own Call of Duty and it'll totally be awesome. Everyone will be super stoked on us.
And then they launched Battlefield Hardline.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a good deep cut right there. That's awesome. I had no idea. That's wild. I love stuff like that though. Like these weird stories from the past in the gaming industry. Like Jacob actually is writing or wrote a script for an upcoming video. This is a little, keep an eye out for this on the main channel, but we're doing a new kind of video where he basically finds interesting stories from the gaming space, and then I'm exposed to them for the first time while we film a video on it, kind of exploring it. And he did one on, like I've said many times, one of my dream games was like a really dark, gritty Pirates of the Caribbean game. I think that has so much potential.
Yeah. And
they were working on it. And they like announced it. It was basically done. And it was like gonna be a pretty big deal. And then a series of things happened and it just fell apart. and it's really too bad. And we're not talking about like just a licensed spin-off. What was it called, Jacob? It was called I wanted to just show the gameplay trailer that they had. Game cancel. Oh, this.
Yeah,
Pirates of the
Brennan makes a
Caribbean.
great point. Like Gears of War set the color palette for the whole 360 gen, for sure. And it's so weird that now a lot of like games are pivoting to that Overstrike style, while Insomniac was they were just 10 years too early on that. Oh,
Well,
damn, this looks
Yeah, and this like was done. Armada of the Damned. They put this whole thing together, and this isn't exactly what I was envisioning. Like, I would rather, lots of sailing on the open sea and things like that. But you can see just the scope. I mean, they had whole islands for you to explore, which was kind of crazy for the time.
You got like a cool view right here, like looking over the whole island. It looks really big.
Yeah, and this was something that, as far as I can tell, was effectively done. And I don't know if it was licensing issues or what. We're going to get into that in that video. But this thing never saw the light of day, which is heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. But if you guys have any other stories of games that looked great that never saw the light of day, let us know, and maybe we'll make a video about them and shout you out.
There was one in Las Vegas.
Oh, really? Oh, hello. Oh, and we're getting a visit from the little one right on the podcast. Do you want to say hello to the podcast people?
Oh, is it the podcast? I thought that was
Hello.
Wednesday.
We did it today. Hi, everybody. Do you want to say hi to everybody?
Hello.
Little Lachlan James. Do you want to say anything to the people listening?
La la la.
Good singing. That's very nice.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
This.
Well put. I don't know how to phrase it better than that. I'll tell you what. Now he's got to go mess with some Legos. No, Finley. And then the cat's trying to break into.
The whole family's
The
here.
whole family's here. The whole family's here. But yeah. Oh, hello, fella. Oh, hello. And then little Mr. Orion is here as well. Yeah. So, anyway, wait, which game did he just review 10 out of 10 just now? I don't know. He won't tell me.
It's on Metacritic, so it can't be erased.
Yeah, the Lachlan review of each of these games. Oh, but man, there's so many stories of these games that were so promising. So promising. And then they just didn't go anywhere. And
yeah,
it's really too bad. Oh, thank you.
I think Deep Down is a good one from Goose. That's a really good one.
Deep Down?
Yeah, know that one?
I will search it in just a second. Marky, I'll see you in a few minutes, okay?
Let's go get some lunch, baby.
I still, because it was never officially cancelled, I still like deep down hope that it's like at one point just like resurfaces and becomes like a real thing, because that looked, even for that time, stunning. Maybe too good to be true, which is probably why they cancelled it. But it was really weird. You had this modern sort of GTA Online style apartment, and then you would like to get like stuff for that apartment. You would go into these very dark Demon Souls style dungeons.
Yeah, I remember. I had this. We did look at this actually recently. It doesn't look bad. Oh, actually, it looks really
Pragmata is totally Deep Down too. Yeah, but I felt that Deep Down was like announced at the PS4 reveal event, and then we still like did not hear. I think they did at Tokyo Game Show like a gameplay demo, and then it was quiet. Pragmata though, they every year now they post a tweet with like that small, like that child crying or something, or like being happy, and then they say, "Oh, well, we will see you next year." And that's like every year so far. But
oh, that's a good question.
Played it.
Oh, I just saw Rocky's question, and I really want to know what is. I guess we can wrap up with this too.
Ooh.
People know my dream game. It's like a Naughty Dog or Rockstar level of quality pirate game set in the golden age of piracy, probably from the perspective of Anne Bonny. I think that would be amazing. But what is Joraptor's dream game?
It's kind of I really want like, okay, I want like a game that I did not know I wanted. That's like my the thing that I like the most. That's why I love Horizon. I did not know I wanted to hunt robot dinosaurs with a bow and arrow. But when I saw that, I immediately knew this is my dream game. So, but like if I have to think of, like I personally, if I had to pick like maybe a bit in the same vein, like I hope that Rockstar also goes into the fantasy realm, because I always really, really like their games. But the things that I never really like about them is that they are too realistic. For example, that in Red Dead 2, if your horse dies in the middle of the desert, yeah, you're screwed. You have to walk. I don't like stuff like that, but it makes sense for that world. So if they make like a fantasy RPG in like a medieval setting, I would lose it. And there were actually once rumors about that happening, but I just want that really, really that because even Red Dead 2, like my experience mostly with Red Dead 2, like I liked the story, but it was mostly just exploring and then finding this sort of someone asking for my help to then later figure out that they were like teasing me and were robbing me, and then they stole my horse. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I still think that Red Dead 2 has the best open world that we've ever seen so far, and it's kind of crazy that it came out in 2018 and now 5 years later we still have not seen something that matches that. But seeing that more in a setting that I like more, like I think the Wild West is great, but I think a fantasy RPG where you can also just like use magic to like have a horse magically appear, I think for me that would be like the best of both worlds, right? And I just want to see what the imagination of the Rockstar team can be if they're not like like they're not like chained by the sort of things that are real in the real world. So I just want like an open world on the Red Dead 2 level, but maybe with a more fantasy type experience. And that's why I like The Witcher 3, for example. Like, for example, in the Rockstar game, it's like, oh, there's a monster there. So it's not that happens often, but you always know it's never a monster because that's not real. While in The Witcher, you were always like, okay, it can be a werewolf or it can be something else, and we will figure out and see. And that's what I really loved. So to have a game like that, but with the sort of Red Dead world, I think that would be the dream game for me.
I can totally understand. I mean, it's been rumored for a long time that Rockstar is working on something medieval. As for whether it's like medieval fantasy, I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not. But like even
like
a medieval
Game of Thrones style game from Rockstar.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. Oh, baby. I like when you were describing it, I was like, oh, what would like a Harry Potter style game from Rockstar look like? Like that would be just outrageous. And like, so just to add a little bit of magic would be wild. But like there are leaks and stuff where like a LinkedIn post from Rockstar character artist Pawas Saxena point to Project Medieval. The description of current projects at Rockstar at the time of this article being written last year said that he was creating, quote, modular environment pieces with organic finish, carefully following medieval architectural style. And I don't think anybody expects GTA 6 to have a medieval architectural style. So they very well could be working on stuff.
Yeah, but that's like all though. Like that's so specific, and that could still be interpreted in multiple ways. Like, what if there is like a level where, or like an arcade cabin in GTA 6 where you like play a midi? Like, there are so many ways that this could. I know that's also far fetched, but I like they are working all hands on deck on GTA 6, and I just hope that after that they don't go back to Red Dead, but like really make something new, that we finally get a new game from them. And LA Noire was basically also another game that I did not know I wanted. But it's like really crazy that we don't have a lot of these like detective games on that like budget level.
Yeah.
And like the thing there where if you were late at a crime scene, the person that committed the crime could have already left. So there you were always in a rush. It was like that was like another thing that I could not like tell you right now that I wanted, but that was like a really thing that normally I'm like, oh, what's that over there? What's that over there? And I know, okay, the end of the world is coming, but I can do all these side missions and the end of the world will still not be there. But in this game, it was really, I have to get there as fast as possible. Otherwise, this killer I might not be able to catch it,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Absolutely. I totally agree. LA Noire, if somehow you guys have not played it, you need to play it. It's so good.
I'm not sure how it holds up, but it's
a little
in my
rough.
memory. It's
Like
probably
the animations are. There's times when they're better and times when they're worse. There's a couple of moments because basically how they did it is they did the facial capture with cameras surrounding you, and then they projected that video, kind of 3D video, onto a flat model of the character's face. And then the walking and arms and everything was captured in a motion capture session later, sometimes 6 months later or longer later. And so every once in a while, there's a scene or a cutscene where they're walking, but their faces clearly do not match what their bodies are doing. And it creates some really funny moments. Just look up on YouTube, funny LA Noire animation or whatever. You'll see some of the highlight reels that people have done of it. But yeah, LA Noire, that game deserves a sequel, man. Oh, it's so
yeah. And I
heartbreaking.
see people in the chat saying here, like the open world, like it was more like a mafia style where that's more the decor like of the game, while you go from mission to mission instead of it really being like an open world you want to explore. But it did make like chasing the killer and stuff like that, or like suspicious targets, like more interesting than to have it be like a more linear structure. So
yeah, absolutely
great.
But everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of with me and the one and only Joe Raptor. What do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say before we?
Not really. Like, I'm gonna jump into Remnant 2, so I'm curious about that. And apart from that, I think we will talk to each other next week when I'm like back from my Barcelona trip.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful time doing that. For everybody else here in chat, I am going to, it looks like I'm going to be working on a couple of reviews over the next week. So our streams might be a little bit inconsistent, but I will try to schedule them in advance so people can see them. It's just tricky because, of course, like we like hanging out here and playing games on stream or talking on stream. But when we're talking about games that have not released yet and that are under embargo, you can't really stream it. So it's a little tough to stream during normal hours when you're trying to get through a game. So that's the whole thing. Luke has a Starfield copy confirmed. Dude, there is no way. If Bethesda like even responds to an email related to Starfield, I will be shocked because they don't really like talking to me anymore. But I get it. I totally understand it. But
I mean, you can still play the early access, like if you just pay up. So
yeah,
then, yeah,
I have to pay for my games. Can you guys believe this? A YouTuber paying for a game? What nonsense is this? Oh God. Oh, Brandon, I like that catchphrase as ending the stream. Every time we end, I'm like, hey, Joe Raptor, got anything to say? And then you go, you just got free roamed. And then you hang up.
Whoa.
That sounds terrible. Anyway, everybody, much love. Rocky, don't worry, I'll check the DMs. I got you. Stay safe, everybody. Much love. We'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.